and welcome to the Big Brother 24 Stock Watch Roundtable podcast, the first one of the season. I'm your host, Taran Armstrong, and with me today to talk through everything happening on the Big Brother 24 live feeds and rate all of the players based on how well we think they're doing is Melissa. How you doing, Melissa?
I am doing great. I am very excited to talk. There we go. It's back. It's coming back to me.
If you missed Big Brother Canada, you don't get that joke, but it came back.
It's back, baby, as am I. I'm very excited to be here talking. I feel like, because I haven't gotten to talk about the house guests since the live feed started, really, aside from the draft, which, like, at that point, like, we didn't really know what was going on. So I am very excited to talk about all the house guests and the goings on and to rate them, because that's really the only power I have here. So I'm very excited.
Truly the only power we have. Also with us is Aman. How you doing, Aman?
I'm okay. I'm just concerned that my connection is a little wonky tonight. So I'm just hoping that it lasts as long as it can for this first stock watch. I don't know. What am I sounding like now?
You sound great. It sounds good so far. Hopefully you won't have to eat any chapsticks in order to get your internet working properly.
Because I'll do it.
He's like, don't make me. I've got one right here.
Yeah.
I'm ready to go.
I think one of the biggest plot twists, this is actually another thing that came from Big Brother Canada. If you're not watching Big Brother Canada, you're missing out on some great inside jokes in the podcast. But Aman made a bet about a player lasting longer than like a week or two. Ended up having to eat a chapstick because he lost the bet. And then plot twist, in the draft for Big Brother 24, we discovered that like, I don't know, seals, he developed a taste for chapstick.
He's insatiable.
He's been secretly eating chapstick ever since.
Yeah, I mean, I've wanted to be on Big Brother for a long time, but at this point, I feel like I'm just going to end up on one of them TLC channels where it's like
My Strange Addiction.
Yeah. So catch me on over there, season 35, My Strange Addiction, chapstick here, right here.
Yes.
You did this to me, Big Brother. You did this to me.
It was all Big Brother's fault.
As I said before, we're here to talk about everything that is happening on the Big Brother 24 live feeds here. In the first week, we had night one feeds, so we've had a full 6 and whatever amount of percentage day of this day, plus we only got like a little bit of the first day, so whatever. This is day 7 currently, days of the house, and we'll be talking about what has been going down. There's been some ugliness, some people that aren't ugly. There's been some strategy. There's been some simulation talk. There's plenty to talk about here as we run through what's happening here and talk about the structure of the house at the moment as well. We've got a twist to try to predict in this backstage situation. And of course, we're going to rate the players from 1 to 10 based on how well we think they're doing. And then you can all play along and buy or sell shares in said players based on the ratings that we give them to see if they will go up or down in price by the time we get back to this next week. You can also be a part of rating the players. I send out a survey every week on Tuesday after the update. It's on Twitter at Armstrong Taran. You still have time. You have about 10 minutes if you want to submit your ratings or other opinions. You can rank the players. You can rate the season, the episodes, the feeds. You talk about Daniel's HOH, say who you want to be evicted, say who you want to win HOH, all kinds of opinions you can give. If you like giving opinions, it's a great place for it. So you can go ahead and do that. But without any further ado, let's go ahead and talk about what we have seen here on the feeds, because it has been a mess. Aman, what have your thoughts been?
Oh, man. It really has been quite the experience the past 6 days. Very excited, as I always am, to have another season of Big Brother to talk about. after having such an interesting preseason my damn self. I feel like
Are you upset that you got cut from the cast last minute?
I don't know. I don't really know how to answer that question. Because on one hand, it's like you always feel like, you know, you're the fan on the couch that's like, oh my God, I would go in there and play totally differently, and maybe the season would be different. You know what I mean? That little narcissistic voice in your head is always there pushing you to be like, oh, I would totally make this season better. And on the other hand, it's like, damn, like this is such. I mean, we see what kind of effect this house can have on people, and it's like, is it worth it? Is it really worth it to put yourself through that? So I don't know. I've been struggling a bit with this season. I brand myself as an optimist. I think that I always will be. But it's hard. It's hard watching the things go down in the house. And I don't know, you just kind of just at least for me, I'm sort of reconciling with how we move forward as a fandom, as podcasters, and as fans of the show. So I'm still finding bits and pieces to enjoy. And I'm don't get me wrong, guys, like I'm really happy to be here, and I'm ready for the stock watch and everything. But yeah, it's been difficult. It's been a bit of a bumpy road.
It definitely has been, and we will get into it, but the Taylor situation that is happening is starting to be written about in like, I don't know, magazines online.
The Today Show has picked
Today.
it up.
Yes.
Yeah.
I didn't know what Today was. Is it a show? Is it a
It's a
thing.
It's the what is it, NBC?
It's Today.
I think
It's a date.
the Today Show of NBC, with all of like those people that, you know, all the like the most famous like news reporters that you can think of, probably on the Today Show.
It's like a big deal.
Yes. Yeah. So like last season, you know, the show was making headlines, pretty good headlines with the cookout. Yes. This season, making headlines, not so good. Not so good. So that's where we are right now. Melissa, how has your first week of feeds been?
It's been really hard. I mean, it's certainly not been fun. I feel like sometimes I just have to just like step away, and not just because I'm like, oh, you're watching too many feeds. It's like sometimes it's really like painful to watch. I mean, just seeing Taylor in a room alone crying, I mean, it really gets to me. So I've been like I went through many different stages of like sadness and like anger and just, just defeat. Like, I don't want to watch anymore. I don't know how to continue on with like the podcast. I don't know what to do. I do feel like Aman said, like finding like little bits of things to enjoy, like the conversation between Michael and Kyle last night, where it was like actual game talk and not like anything else. And I think Aman is right too about, everyone wants to sit there and say like, well, I wouldn't do that in the house. I would stick up for Taylor. But you hear the people having conversations like, they say like, I don't like what was going on, but I didn't want to jeopardize my game. So I had to just like either make a joke or be quiet, or like, I had to leave Taylor alone in the room. I didn't want to be seen alone with her. And it's like, it's that sort of like mob mentality that Big Brother cultivates. Like that happens all the time on that show. And we all want to sit here and be like, I would do it different. I mean, I sit there and say that myself, like, I obviously would do this differently though. But like, it's hard to say that when then you see all these people who are like, presumably some of them like good people, do this sort of thing and just, or passively let it happen around them.
Yeah.
And I would hope that, people would see this sort of behavior and be like, yeah, this is gross, guys. Like, she didn't do anything wrong. She's a really nice person. Like, let's like not do this. Like, it's a game. But I don't know. I don't know what it's like in the house. And I'm very, disheartened to see that that's not the case. And I think like, the only explanation, like, for a lot of this behavior is obviously jealousy. And I hate to use that because I hate when people use that like, oh, well, they're obviously jealous of you. Because a lot of the time it's like, well, like, there are other reasons, like maybe you're just like not a nice person, or maybe there's other things going on. Like it's not necessarily that you're so great and they're jealous, but I really do think that's the case here. I mean, I can't think of really like any other reason why they would have immediately been like, this girl, because she's so nice and she's so like personable and friendly and funny and pretty, and like I just think it stems from insecurities. That's really like all I can think about, because she's she's nothing like they thought that she was. And it really, it makes me really sad to see the way that she's been treated. It's not justified. I'll stop because I know we're trying to move this along, but you know, it has been very, very, very upsetting to see.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think what's interesting is that first of all, you know, this cast is not very heavy on the fans end of the spectrum in terms of the cast. Many of them are either very like light fans of the show or weren't really familiar at all. And one of the things that I was thinking of when you were saying like, oh, a lot of us would like to think that we wouldn't, you know, act that way going into the house is, you know, thinking about how I grew up watching this show and watching how these things happen. Like this is an opportunity to see in fine detail where it starts, where it develops, where it grows, where it lands, and sort of like potentially, hopefully, identify those things in your own life because these things do happen in real life too. But you know, very rarely do you have an opportunity to watch it and be able to examine it and sort of like see it from this angle. Because when you're in it, it's a lot more difficult to see what's happening, as we're seeing with these people in this house. And so, you know, I certainly would like to think that if I went into the house knowing what I know from having watched this show for over 20 years, that like if I found myself in a situation where everyone is hating on one person, I'd be like, well,
Yeah.
maybe I should think for myself a little bit in this situation and understand that this might not be the case, because I know for a fact that, like, again, growing up on this show, it's definitely helped me sort of understand when things in this vein have happened in my real life, to avoid these situations or to whatever, right? So I would hope that at the very least, that if we can take anything from this situation, it's that we can learn from it and hopefully better ourselves. And you know, it sucks that it takes something bad in order for that to happen, but you know, we can all do our best, and hopefully, if Taylor ends up leaving the house this week or anytime in the future, we can sort of shower her with love and support, because I think that you know, she is, from what we have seen so far, like an abundantly wonderful person, and it definitely sucks what's happening.
I feel like I was having a conversation with another like longtime fan of the show, and we got into it about how we can make this better, because I think that we know that some stuff like this happens a lot of the time on Big Brother, and it's interesting the point about a lot of the people not really being fans of the show, because as jaded as I have become about Big Brother and how it can be instrumental in making change, I think I've really begun to come around on that, especially given the advent of Big Brother 23 and the cookout. I think that was like it was a very useful tool to exemplify the struggles of African Americans in that house. And I feel like if there were more people on this cast that were fans of the show, that didn't just hear about the cookout or just watch the season really quickly, that actually have spent time with Big Brother, have lived with Big Brother in their lives, then maybe they would be more privy to the behaviors that you were just talking about. And that within itself, Big Brother can really build upon itself, and each season can get socially better because you have people that are students of the game and students of all the sociological stuff it implies. So I wonder what it was with this casting team this time around, where they decided to forego so many fans that want to be on the show. And and before people come for me, I'm not speaking from my point of view. I'm really not. But there are so many people that want to be on this show that I know for a fact would give us good game and also have a lot of this stuff in the back of their mind before they go into the house. We also had a conversation about, what is it about Big Brother Canada that makes their feeds just a little bit better? I mean, they have their issues of their own. They're not perfect, but the production just seems to handle things a lot differently. Like they get those little things from Big Brother that will say, remember, Canada is watching. Why don't we have that here? Why don't we have why are all of the warnings in secret? Why is everything behind closed door? Why is there no transparency when it comes to production and what it is that they're doing? Why do we have to claw at these casting producers and antagonize them on Twitter to the point where they feel like they can't even be on Twitter anymore? What is this culture that we have or surrounding the show where everything has to be a battleground? It just doesn't make any sense. Why do you want the experience that your fans have for the show to be so negative? And I know that fans can be very critical. I know that there are definitely points of critique that are extremely harsh and that we should step back for a second and be like, okay, do we need to make this mountain out of a molehill? I know that happens. But there's a running theme here. And I think that it gets worse and worse each year because people are tired. They're tired of it and they don't know what to do, which is why you have a manifestation of all of these news articles. First it was TMZ for a little bit, and now it's graduated to the Today Show. Why is that happening? That doesn't make any sense to me. I feel like if anything, you should want to capitalize on what happened last season and parlay that into a better time for everyone involved. And I just feel like production, they're so silent. And you are making yourselves complicit in all of this when you don't do anything to at least. The Aaron Greaves disclaimer is outdated. It is no longer acceptable to just have that little disclaimer at the beginning of feeds and that's it. There needs to be more. There needs to be something else. And I'm not an expert. I'm not going to sit here and claim to know all of the steps that you can take, but I know that staying silent is not the answer either. You just need to tell us that you give a damn so that we don't feel like we need to scream.
Yeah, that's it. I absolutely agree. No, I think you're like absolutely on point because I don't think that Big Brother producers care about the show at all. I don't think they care about the fans. I don't think they care about what they're producing. I think that they don't care. And if they do care, well, maybe they should speak up and say so because I've never heard them say that they care. I've never heard them give an interview like commenting on any of these things. Like obviously like Julie will, talk to Entertainment Weekly once in a while, but it's like that doesn't tell me anything. I don't trust that she has like any say over what's going on in the house. And she even says that. She even is like, well, I'm watching like the rest of you. I'm a fan. And like, why don't we get the producers speaking up or making changes or doing anything ever like we do with Big Brother Canada? I do feel like Big Brother Canada cares about their fans. I think Arissa is a huge part of it. And now she's a producer on the show and she does comment on these things. She does say when things are wrong or bad or when they're going well or whatever and give us an inside look at like what's going on here. And I don't feel like Big Brother US does that at all. I don't feel like they care about anyone who watches the show. I think they care about, just pumping out episodes each week and just getting money from it. Like, I don't know. And I don't know why that's the case. I mean, you would think they would care. I think Survivor producers, like, I do feel like they care. And I feel like Jeff cares. I don't feel like there's anybody involved on Big Brother US that actually cares. And I thought that the casting team cared, and they probably do care, but I do think production overrides them on everything. And just says like, we want recruits and we want people who are like hotties who will wear a swimsuit. Like, I think that's honestly what they're looking for. And that's not the way, obviously, this podcast views the show as just like babes in bikinis or something, because like we clearly talk about it all the time and like the strategy of it. And why would we rate the strategy of house guests who are like, if it really was to us just a show about babes in bikinis? So like, why don't they address that at all? Like, why don't they care about that? So I don't know. I feel, I feel like they don't care. And I mean, I know they don't care. So yeah.
I like the idea of the show being rebranded to Babes in Bikinis. Still could be BB, just next season, BB25, Babes in Bikinis 25. I'm in.
I mean, at least be honest about it. You
Yeah.
know, like at least just tell us, like, look,
I mean, there's a whole
give up on
show
this.
being hosted by Nikki Glazer called F Boy Island. It's like if you click onto that channel, you know exactly what you're gonna get over there. So you can't even really, you cannot complain if there is some F happening on F Boy Island. But this is a show that espouses itself as a social experiment, and I understand as a family friendly. It's like CBS network, and I understand that the conversation that I had with my friend before, we talked about like, ways in which they can mitigate this. And there is a fine line between overly sanitizing people before they go into the house. Like, we already know that there's like a little bit of sensitivity training, diversity training, whatever the hell. That's great. I think that needs to stay in place. And I think there are ways that you can build upon that. But I also think that you don't want people to walk into the house like these, I hate this term, but I can't think of anything else, as woke robots trying to make sure that nothing bad ever happens, because they're human beings. Bad things are going to happen. People are going to piss us off every season. It just is what it is. There's no way, there is no perfect kumbaya season. Like even Big Brother 23 last year, it had its issues. But the point is to put little hints and things out there for these cast members so that they can think before they behave in this manner, and to have that moment to be like, the whole house is doing this to this one person. Do I want to be a part of that in this way? And I think that would go such a long way.
Yeah, they're in sequester for 2 weeks before they enter the house, right? I don't know how long their training is. In my head, they're watching like a 30-minute video before they enter.
Like those stupid ones for work.
Right. They're certainly not like getting use that, have a full-on 2-week course in my eyes. Because it's not about like being a robot that avoids anything remotely controversial. It's about trying to get people to understand, the ramifications of their actions. So even if they do make a mistake, they can sort of like acknowledge it and try to rectify it, right? So
also, like,
I mean,
extensive psych evaluations, maybe. Like, I feel like whatever they're doing isn't enough. Like, I think they need like to make sure they're not casting people who like, are super problematic or like have their own issues going on or like are racist. You know what I mean? I feel like it's like just like maybe take a minute to like actually do a real evaluation and not one of those like stupid like just check the box things, because obviously people are gonna like check the correct box or whatever to get on a show.
I don't know enough about psychology to know how effective proper like evaluation would be, or how sort of predictive it would be. But certainly I think there's more work that could go into just the fact that they're sitting there doing nothing for 2 weeks most of the time. Like, make use of that time is my call. A couple of other things just briefly. Obviously, as we were saying, I think fans are more likely to be a little more sensitive. I think that they're more likely to have learned some things from watching the show. Certainly not a guarantee, though. We've seen plenty of examples of the opposite. But I do think they are more likely to be a little more sensitive. And also, I'm sure there are some people on production that care about the show. But I agree with Melissa. I think the higher ups probably don't, and that's where it matters. So, even if you did care, there's probably not a lot you can do without the support of the people in charge. So,
and I also think that the idea that people are throwing out there, like, oh, well, just stop watching the show. Like, if we all just like boycott it, and then like, and then they'll know that like, oh no, the ratings are down or whatever. Like, we're gonna have to turn things around. I don't think that'll happen. I think if we stop watching the show and say the ratings, first of all, I don't know if it would make a difference if it like just like us, because we're like the casual fans are like they way outnumber us. But even so, even if we all were like, well, let's not watch it anymore, and the ratings went down, I don't think they'd take that as a hint to be like, we need to revamp, we need to relook at everything and really care about this. They would just be like, yeah, cancel the show.
Yeah,
like take it off the roster.
They would go on to different jobs.
Right. Yeah. It's not like they would sit there and be like, we need to do something to save Big Brother and turn it around. Like, they don't care. Like, they literally would just move on. So I don't think like just stop watching the show is the answer, because like then we won't have Big Brother anymore. And I do really love the show, like as a concept and like as, a historical thing. But, I do feel like something's gotta give here. Like something's gotta change, or else it's not fun. It's not good. I don't know.
Yeah. So obviously we've been talking about this for a while, but in case you're kind of confused, you don't really know what's happening, hopefully you're still able to follow most of that. Like I think you can get the gist of what we're talking about, that obviously Taylor, that we've referenced, is not being treated very well. To give you some of the specifics, obviously the updates are going to give you a better picture of what's happening, but Daniel is the HOH, and he nominated Michael and Terrence for eviction, but pretty much from night one, Taylor was being talked about in a very negative way. People seemed to have an impression of her that was very negative, that she was a guy's girl. You saw this on the episode if you've watched the episodes. In addition to that, pretty quickly we started hearing from multiple people that she was a firecracker, that if somebody were to nominate her, she would go off, blow up, and it would be ugly. And those ideas got into people's heads, and they were actually eventually used as an argument to put her on the block once Michael won the veto, as a replacement, and then to send her home, saying that, look, people are going to be scared to put her on the block because of the way that she will react. So you might as well put her up now, post veto. We'll only have to deal with her for a couple of days. That was a pretty convincing argument, or at the very least, it was one of many arguments that seemed to impact the decision. And ultimately, Taylor ended up on the block. Her reaction, by the way, was to be sad and apologize to everyone if she made anyone feel uncomfortable, and say she's not mad at Daniel or anyone. Like the most chill reaction you could possibly have in the game. And that's basically where we are. Obviously, a lot of other things stemmed from this whole situation as this thing built up. Once the idea of somebody being a bad person or weird or whatever gets into your head, every little thing that they do, you're looking for them to be wrong in some way. And so a lot of little things here and there get picked up and used as evidence against her, piling up into this massive mountain of like, oh, she's really bad. She makes people feel uncomfortable by doing all sorts of things. Again, we've mentioned these details in the updates and some of them on the recaps as well, so we're not going to continue to retread them. But basically, if especially if you've seen her post nominations, like you will see she is just like super, super sweet, super chill, and very, very much willing to, I would even say almost overly accept responsibility for any situation, which is a really good trait to have, in my opinion, to approach a situation where she's the one that got put on the block. She's the one that we all know has been pretty wronged. But she's still willing to go to people and be like, oh my God, if I made you feel uncomfortable in any way, I'm so sorry. Talk to people like Monty, who she had a miscommunication with, and say, oh, you know what? I definitely didn't communicate that to you properly enough. So you taking it the wrong way and then flipping the entire house against me, totally my bad. Sorry, I didn't communicate it to you properly. And like, just very, very gracious in general. And so despite that, there are still conversations being had even today of she's delusional. She's been doing good so far, but I hope it stays that way. And so on and so forth. So
it's so infuriating.
This is what we're talking about.
It's so infuriating. She did nothing wrong. And then when she goes to each person individually, first of all, like to sit there and be like, you need to, like, now's your chance to make amends and make things right and apologize. Like, shut up. I'm so annoyed. And then like the fact that it's like, she then goes to each person and is like, hey, like if I made you feel uncomfortable, like, I'm so sorry, blah, blah. And every single person, of course, is like, well, you didn't make me feel uncomfortable. I'm totally cool with you. But like, I think you may have made other people feel uncomfortable. So she goes to every single person, and nobody will own up to whatever made them uncomfortable about her. And each person throws it off on someone else and says like, well, they probably felt uncomfortable with you because of XYZ reason. And it's like, what even is this? First of all, she has nothing to apologize for. She did nothing wrong. And to sit there and make her believe that she did something wrong, but not tell her what she did is so, it's so infuriating to me, because it's like, okay, well, if she did something wrong, then just say it. And also, like, this whole conversation about like, oh, like, God, and then when finally confronted with the idea that she actually didn't do anything and it was all a misunderstanding, like with Daniel or whatever, and it's like, oh, okay, like she didn't actually do that, and then he's like, he doesn't want to admit that he made a mistake, and so he doubles down and is like, well, she did this and that, she called Jasmine fat, and she's got to go. I hope you're not trying to tell me that I made the wrong choice. And it's like, he literally can't even understand that, like, oh, I made a mistake, let's like backtrack and do something else now. I don't know, the whole thing has made me so mad.
Yeah.
Anyway,
It's I mean, no, it's I mean, yeah. It's horrible. It really is horrible. And if I wish that it had been anything else. I wish that we about like, oh well, there was this one house guest that showed their ass this week, and yeah, of course they're going to be the one that gets targeted. But nothing happened. Nothing happened. They had preconceptions about her. The girls already wrote her off night one. They thought that she was going to be a guy's girl. They thought that she was trying to get in with the guys. And then it just snowballed and snowballed and snowballed. She tried to have a conversation with Monty. And it pisses me off to no end that we do not get that conversation between her and Monty on the feeds. We do see Paloma talking about being concerned about the guys and saying that in front of Taylor, but we do not see the conversation that takes place after that. So really, it's just Monty's word that we have to go by on what's going on here. But I'm assuming she tried to have that conversation with him in confidence.
Yeah, I expect that we'll see that on the episode.
We better see it on the episode.
Because what I don't think they'll do is show the nonsense stuff, the problematic or just like dumb, stupid stuff. I think what they will show is the Monty thing, because that's the most clear sort of example of what she could have done wrong. And they might still show it as like a misunderstanding and maybe Taylor got screwed. But I think they'll probably focus most around that particular thing because it's the safest thing to show. I would love for them to go into detail and like really show everything, especially because like even just as somebody who is doing the updates, I'm trying to explain all of these things in real time, and I still get tons of responses of like, well, there's got to be something, Taran. Clearly she's done something wrong. I'm like on here every day, like walking through the day, and I'm like, there's nothing, there's nothing here, and they're like, stop crying, racist. It's like,
I'm so mad that like even my damn self had to try to like do like these little mental gymnastics where I'm sitting here thinking, okay, let me play armchair psychologist and try to understand what it is that is going on in their minds. It's just plain old jealousy on the girls' end. It's just plain old microaggressive comments coming from Pooch and Daniel. It's the same stuff that we see over and over and over again. There was no real reason to go after her, so they allowed whatever conception that they already had in their mind and used that as a combatant against her, made her feel like she was the issue by saying, oh, well, you just have been rubbing people the wrong way. What wrong? What do you mean? They were like cheering her on when they made her, well, they didn't make her, but when they supported her in dressing up and showing off her finale fits, which they all have, by the way. And then even goes so far as like Kyle's even like dancing with her in the kitchen. And then all of a sudden it's like, oh my God, she's so arrogant. It is utter insanity. It is utter insanity. It goes beyond the game, guys. It's not good gameplay, because if we can sit here and talk about how this is a social experiment all day, it was wretched behavior, and it sucks to watch, especially after the nominations take place. And you just see, even before the nominations take place, you see her crying by herself in the bathroom, and then she goes and plays it off and says, I was crying for no reason. She's crying because she feels so isolated and she hasn't done anything. Not a damn thing. Like, and that's not fun to watch.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah, and I've
Oh,
seen that too. I've seen like oh, and you know, I've seen this notion like, oh, what do you watch the show for if not for the drama? Come on, this is
not like
drama.
this.
This
It's
is
like
not drama.
that, like there's many different kinds of drama. It's, I mean, a very nebulous definition of it, I guess, is you could certainly say. The way that I look at drama in the house, and you know, obviously I watch for the strategy anyway, but like fun drama for me is when deep strategy is happening and somebody gets pissed because they got outplayed, and then there's two people on equal footing who are fighting because like, oh, this person betrayed me, screw you, you suck, I can't believe you did that to me, and the other person's like, what do you want me to do, I gotcha. Like, that's fun drama to me.
Yes.
You know, drama of, you know, 15 people smack talking someone behind their back while that person just
That's
cries
not
alone because they're
drama.
isolated is not drama to me.
That's not drama at all. It's like, I don't see, there's not even like good entertainment in that. I don't like watching that. Like, not at all. No.
And then
Go ahead.
you know, like about her and like Jasmine saying like, oh, I just want her to do better. You need to do better. You need to do better. All of you need to do better. She needs to do, what has she done to even do better? Y'all are the ones that did this to her. And then Joseph, like, talking about like, oh, when Taylor made the rounds and got to him eventually, he's talking about, oh, well, you know, it didn't bother me. I mean, I feel like your confidence is sexy. Then why are you taking part in it? That is that's so icky. Like, for you to say that to her face and then to say to Monty, oh yeah, she's got to go. F you. Like, I'm just so, oh my God. I didn't want to get this heated. I really did.
No, I know. I didn't either. And I'm mad. I'm so mad. And like, Taran, the fact that people are telling you
such grimy behavior.
The fact that people are telling you like, well, she must have done something. Like, I have seen this in real life. Like, I saw this in my sorority. One of my best friends is gorgeous, a gorgeous girl, very confident. Like, it just, and she acts that way. She's very confident, but she's like the sweetest girl. But when I first joined the sorority, all the girls hated her and they were all mean and they weren't nice and blah, blah, blah. And I was like, oh, well, maybe she isn't nice. Like, maybe she's not a nice person. Like, I didn't know her at the time. So I was like, oh, maybe she's not a nice person. If everybody doesn't like her, there must be something to it. And then I got to know her. She's like the sweetest person. She's fun. She's funny. There's nothing to her to hate. But the people just hated her because they didn't even know her. They just were jealous. They just like, it stems from their own insecurities, their own jealousy. And there's nothing that they could ever point to as to like why they didn't like her. It was just like, I just not get a good vibe. I don't get a good vibe from her. It's like, I've seen it play out, and I've seen like the way that you can kind of be pulled into it and be like, oh, well, there must be something there. But really, there's nothing. And like, there are situations where like the person has done nothing wrong. And then for whatever internal reasons, that person just hates them for whatever reason. And it's really hard to watch play out and to not have anybody give her a chance. Like, nobody talking to her, nobody even like, and I get the conversation between Michael and Kyle where they're like, it really sucks to see this happen to her, but like, I mean, I didn't want to jeopardize my game, so like I had to leave the room when I was the only person alone with her. And it's just like, it's so disheartening. And you would always hope that like somebody would step up and like somebody would, you know, recognize that this is a person and this is like, you know, someone who's hurting and that this is not the way to treat somebody. And it just, it's sad. It's really sad. It's really sad.
And I don't want to hear anybody say like, oh my God, you guys spent 40 minutes talking about the Taylor situation on the roundtable. Get to the roundtable things, because this is the entire point of the roundtable podcast. Like this is literally what it was invented for. It is the space to discuss things in more detail that are happening on the feeds that wouldn't really fit into an update or a recap or anything like that. So that's what we're here for. But of course, we are also here for some other things as well, including what else is happening in the house. There is some strategy going on. There is some of that. We've got some alliance structures set up. In particular, if I were to give you the state of the house, I would tell you that the center of the house right now is is formerly known as Mamba, currently known as Bleep, or maybe that's better. And they do not plan to stay Bleep, but they do plan to stay together. I will just continue to call them Mamba until they give themselves a new actual name. It is Paloma, Alyssa, Amira, Monty, Kyle, and Michael. Now, this alliance was created by Paloma and Alyssa. It originally included Pooch, but Paloma pulled a bit of a Devin. You know, Devin added people without permission. Paloma kicked someone out and then replaced him without permission overnight. Yeah. So kind of like the next step after Devin. And replaced Pooch with Michael, which was, I think, a pretty good call overall. And when Michael wins the veto this week, it really helps like settle him into this group. So that's the biggest secret alliance going on right now. 6 people. They're all a bit kind of like around Paloma at this point. There's a lot that we can get into with Paloma. We'll get into that in a second. But for the most part, this alliance is pretty solid, and they're all in a very good position to influence the house in the way that they want. If they go unchecked for a while, they could definitely become the main power in the house. Yeah. But there are some other things going on as well. There's the girls, which you likely saw in the episode 2 on Sunday. They are a bit of a mess right now because none of them are particularly fond of working with Indy because she's difficult to talk game with. And Brittany just decided to make a play and rat Amira out to Pooch, saying to Pooch that Amira was coming for him. And then Pooch immediately ratted Brittany out to Amira. And so now all of the girls know that Brittany is not to be trusted. And this information has also gotten to Mamba, and Brittany has become one of the main targets for next week. So the girls in general is starting to look more like Jasmine as a parachute to Mamba, and that's about it. On the other side, you have Oasis, which is the guys' alliance. It's 6 of the guys, all of them minus Terrence and Michael. What a surprise. And this alliance is also pretty fake because Kyle and Monty have both ratted it out to Mamba, who now know about Oasis. And they're not really into it. They actually like the idea of targeting Turner and Pooch at some point. Turner and Pooch have their own separate thing away from the Oasis Alliance that is sort of like the core, what they see as the core of the Oasis Alliance, which they originally called the Motley Crue Alliance. They were told, no, you can't do that. That's a copywritten name. And so instead of calling it Motley Crue, they came up with a new name, hopefully one that won't be struck down by copyright. They decided to call it for now Inception.
Yeah.
Apropos, considering what Paloma was talking about earlier on the feeds.
I think she incepted the idea. Yeah. So they've got that going on. I would say probably the biggest opposition to Mamba at this time is this Inception Alliance plus Nicole, who are like the biggest alliance outside of Mamba that is actually together. And no, I'm not joking about the name, unfortunately. So that's pretty much the structure, right? You've got Mamba, you've got Inception plus Nicole, and then you've got these 2 fake gender alliances, the girls and Oasis, and then you've kind of got like Terrence floating around, a bit aimless at this time, although he did just have a conversation with Michael. Maybe he can be picked up in that direction. He also has a decent relationship with Nicole, so he might be picked up in that direction. And then you also, of course, have Taylor, who's on the block, likely going home, except for the possibility of this backstage twist. If she ends up staying in the house, she would likely remain an outcast for now, with Monty in particular as perhaps one of the most powerful people in the house, being very firm that if she stays in the house, that they should all be gunning for her ASAP, even if she does survive. So not looking super good for Taylor, even if she does survive to blend back in somewhere. I'm not even sure where she would go at this point. Maybe with Brittany in some direction, just if Brittany is another outcast, but it's a difficult one to judge. So that's the structure. That's what we're working with.
Yeah, like you said, it really looks like Mamba really Paloma, might as well, Paloma Melissa, they did a good job in creating a structure, especially considering the two of them are backstage this week and at risk of going home. I think, it's another example of you can never really play too hard, too fast, too early, and you can still try to make moves even if you aren't in like the best strategic position in the house. I think it's very interesting when it comes to like some of the inner workings of these alliances. I feel like the girls maybe could have been a thing if like maybe Brittany didn't rat out to the guys about Amira coming for them, and now the guys
Very
are doing
strange move.
the same thing. It's like Monty and Kyle, but at least they have something to back it up with, whereas Brittany really didn't have much of a backup besides the girl. There's a lot of strange behavior going on all around, which is going to make these ratings strange. So
do you think it's instead of calling it Mamba, should we just call it the Alliance?
Yeah,
does that work? Just every time anybody look, I know everyone doesn't have a button, but maybe I can just if you telegraph it ahead of time enough, I can do it for you as we talk about the Alliance. I don't know.
I will purchase a button for the
I feel like you could just play it on your phone or something.
Alliance so that I can fully talk about the Alliance all season long.
fully inspired by the Face podcast. Shout out to the Face podcast. It's a great podcast. Check it out. Anyway, so let's see, what else should we talk about here? That's the basic structure. Let's talk about Paloma, because Paloma is definitely something that we need to talk about. Paloma was the main driver of the strategy in the first few days. Again, she was the one that created the alliance, and she was helped create the girls thing. She has a bunch of different alliances and game talk things happening at once. And then it feels like just like a couple of days ago, it went from like lots of intense gameplay to lots of intense just like rants about being in a simulation and like all kinds of like, she hacked the game, she's figured out a way to break the internet, she's going around the rules, she's gonna, she's not allowed to split the money, but when she wins the money, she's gonna invest in everyone's businesses, and she got in trouble for that, and like, it's difficult to describe if you're not watching the feeds. Obviously, I recommend checking out the update from this morning. I gave like a 10-minute example of the kinds of things that she's saying on the feeds at a time. And so obviously you can get a sense of that, like, oh, that sounds pretty funky, like that's weird. But it's constant. I mean, anytime she enters a conversation, it changes to the simulation, or like the difficult. She's talking about like my health is failing. I'm not sleeping. Like I've got anxiety, but I fixed my anxiety by just falling in love with all of you. And it's very strange. And again, like there's speculation about various things. Like we're not here to diagnose anything. Again, we hope that she is doing okay, because it's definitely like it's a lot. And we also like don't want to make too much light of it if it is something serious, but it's definitely taken an effect on the strategy of the game, because she really was the driver of all of this, as I've said. And so now everyone's kind of like, I got in the passenger seat of this person who is now looking at me and not the road, and telling me about how it's okay, we're just in a simulation, and they're a little bit concerned. So that's kind of where things stand in terms of like the structure, and why it might be more fragile than it appears, depending on what's happening with Paloma. And I don't know if this is a temporary thing, if it is a sleep deprivation thing, or something, or if this is what we can expect from Paloma moving forward, assuming she survives this backstage situation. But it's a lot.
It is a lot. It's very wild. It's very bizarre, and not in like a normal kind of bizarre way, if there is one. Like it's not like oh, she's just kind of having a goofy fun time and just like chit-chatting. It's like, or like she's purposefully being goofy. It doesn't feel that way. I don't know what the deal is. I would hope that maybe production would just like keep an eye on her, make sure everything's good, like maybe have her talk to somebody just to make sure everything's good. But it does seem markedly different from the first couple days of feeds. Like I feel like first couple days of feeds, she did talk a lot, and she was very kind of like all over the place, but it was a very focused talk. Whereas now I do feel like a lot of the way that she's speaking is not focused. It's like kind of all over the place, and a lot of like staring into the mirrors during conversations. Like it's like she's looking at like what she's looking like to make sure, I don't know why, maybe to make sure she's like having the correct reactions, or like having the correct facial expressions. I don't know, but she's just constantly looking in the mirrors as she's having a conversation with somebody over here, and just talking. And like when you can tell, like some people are trying to like kind of steer her back into whatever conversation they were having. Like they'll be having a conversation, she'll be having the same conversation, or she'll be like part of it. And then she'll kind of steer the conversation off in some, strange simulation talk conversation. And they're kind of like, oh, haha. Well, anyway, back to like who do we think is, and then she kind of steers it back and won't go back to the strategy talk. I feel like if I was in the house, I would absolutely see her as a liability to my alliance and be like, okay, like, I don't know what's going on here, but like, this isn't going to work long term. Like maybe for now we keep her in because she's on my side, but like long term, like she's not someone who I would pair up with on a one-on-one situation, probably.
Yeah, and I said like we're not in the business of diagnosing anyone.
No,
I would also like just put it out there, like if you're in the chat or if you're in the community, I would also like just advise against trying to diagnose her with anything, calling her crazy or anything like that. I don't think it's very helpful, and I don't think it's very super appropriate. Just my opinion on that.
I agree. I love Janelle, but I don't think that she should have tweeted what she tweeted today. I think something that we have to remember is that even if it turns out that Paloma is just Paloma and that's just how she is and there's nothing wrong with her clinically or otherwise, the people that actually do suffer from these things that people are throwing out there like that are watching the show too. So you just have to be mindful of your surroundings and the type people that can see your comments. It's just not very kosher. But we got to see a lot of like examples of Paloma just sort of being all over the place, especially with the Taylor situation, because Monty was sort of miffed about the fact that it sounded like Taylor found out that he was the one that ratted her out to Paloma, and he was trying to nail it down with Paloma about what exactly took place in that conversation after Taylor was nominated and she spoke with Paloma first. And he could not get a clear-cut answer. So he went to Daniel and asked Daniel, can you just talk to her and see what exactly happened in that conversation? Because I just couldn't quite figure it out. And we watched Daniel go over to Paloma and ask, so what did you talk to Taylor about? And Paloma went on like this entire tangent about like how her throat hurts and how she can't talk and how she just has to focus, and then how just a lot before she could eventually answer the question. And even when she answered the question, it was like, okay, so what happened? It's very circuitous the way that she speaks, and just not good if you want to work with her, because you're never really gonna know what happened. I'm like, what's the next step, sis? I feel like she has moments of clarity where she's like, I've got this figured out. I know exactly what to do. This is how the alliance is going to work. And then the rest of the time, it's just word salad. And I don't think that going forward, she's going to last long, because, like I said, whether there's something wrong with her or not, it's not good for an alliance. It's not healthy for an alliance. So.
Yeah, so like for now, it seems like the general consensus is it's weird. We don't really know what to think of it. It's difficult to talk to her, but the people in her alliance, particularly, they feel like at least she's loyal to us. That she's a bit of a wild card, but she's loyal to us, so we're fine. We're all right with her for now. I could definitely see with the right HOH this all coming crashing down on her. But in terms of her alliance, which happens to be the major one, she definitely has a lot of room to maneuver and mess up because of the structure that she has put in place for now. So yes, I'm if you've just joined and you're hearing me bleep out the alliance, it's because they're calling themselves the Bleep Alliance for now.
Honestly, I feel like they should keep it. I think it's kind of funny, the fact that, it's kind of like very meta. It's like, oh, we can't be the Bleep Alliance because copyright, so let's be the Bleep Alliance.
It is a very unique name for sure. All right, so that's Paloma. Anything else that we need to discuss before heading into some of the stock watchy portions of this podcast?
I don't think so. I feel like any other points would just get brought up whenever we're talking about so and so.
Right. Agreed.
All right. Well, let's discuss some of the survey questions before we get into the ratings themselves. In particular, big favorite of the audience is getting to talk about their favorites. I asked the audience to rank the players from their favorite to their least favorite players. And we have a whole list of 16 people. We like to make it a little fun. I want to know from Aman and Melissa. We'll do Melissa first. Who do you think is the number one most favorite player from the audience?
I mean, yeah. If it's not Taylor, shame on all of you.
Yeah.
Shame on all of you, indeed. It is actually Michael.
It is not.
It is
okay.
by a little bit. It's pretty close.
That's the only one that I could understand. I will rescind my shame on you. I'm still side eyeing people, but I understand that I can understand why Michael would be up there. It was nice to see.
I absolutely would have said Michael, up there, but not first. I mean, he hasn't done anything yet.
He won a veto.
He won the veto. I feel like that was. A lot of people like to see that happen, especially after he was, pumping himself up and like, with WWJD, what would Janelle do? And then ends up manifesting it, so there's a story there. I, on the other hand,
I don't know. I feel like I can't. And as much as I do really like Michael and he's my number 2, the fact that he hasn't stood up for Taylor. Nobody stood up for Taylor. And I feel like that automatically brings everybody down a little bit in my book. If someone
there is a Taylor curve, honey.
Yeah, I feel like if someone would have said something or done something, and I get that it's like, well, you don't want to jeopardize your game. But you know what? Like, honestly, I feel like even if I thought it would jeopardize my game, if I saw something going on, like, and as much, okay, yeah, everyone could say you're talking a big game, but I feel like that to me, it's not an excuse. Like, I don't want to jeopardize my game. If you see something wrong going on and you see something bad going on in the house, to like, I would be like, you know what? I'd prefer to lose and just like stand up for what I believe in, like, than to like, you know, go like a few weeks further in the game. I don't know.
I also think people underestimate the power of standing up for somebody. Like, I think a lot of people are afraid to, and they don't realize that all it usually takes is just for one person to stand up and be like, no.
Right.
And then all of those people that were kind of just like chilling, not wanting to say anything either, are kind of like, oh, and people tend to respect somebody that's willing to just stand up and say that. And it gives you some agency, and it sort of like allows you to forge your own path in the game. I think it's not super often that we would see, you know, somebody like what you do see is the person that's on the outs. If you spend too much time with them, like trying to get their jury vote or just like isolating yourself with them, that could get you to be on the outs. But if you're just like in the group being like, guys, let's stop talking so much trash, they'll usually just stop talking so much trash. And who's going to like come for you for that? Very few people.
We've seen that before too. We've seen people do that. Like I feel like X did that last season about maybe not about don't talk trash about someone, but it was like, let's not use that language or let's not say this or that. Like I remember him saying that. And then the person was just like, oh, okay, well, anyway, let's move on. Like, and it wasn't this big deal just to say like a small thing. You don't have to like sit there and stand on a table and be like, everyone in here, you know, like all you have to do is just be like, hey, like, you know, I haven't seen her do anything. Like what exactly did she do? Like, or even just like, you know, just say like, hey, let's kind of like leave it be. Like, we already know she's on the block or whatever. Just like,
I'm going to stand on the table. I'm going to get on the kitchen table and be like, all of you mother effers have been out of your minds and all this stuff.
Like,
you.
Yeah, you have a lot more power than you think.
Otherwise, like what? You get lumped in with like the 15 other people who have a Today Show, like, or like articles written about them. Like, I'm sorry, I don't want to be included in that. I want to make sure I differentiate myself. Like, I you know, if you see something, you've got to stand up, you got to say something. And I think like a few extra weeks in the house is not worth it to me to just sit by and like watch it happen. So, you know, whatever.
Yeah. So Taylor was a close number 2 in the favorite ranking. Let's make a guess for number 3. Who's in third place? Aman, what do you think?
Number 3, definitely someone that's like maybe in a bit of an underdog position. Maybe I could see maybe Brittany. I don't think Terrence really pulled up too high because he's just so like he's like barely on the feed, such a non-factor. Is there anybody else that I'm forgetting about besides Brittany? I don't see any of the other girls getting it. Any of the guys? Maybe Kyle? Maybe? Because he's kind of like... I'm going to go with Brittany.
Melissa?
I think I'll go with Brittany too, but you know what? I'll do something different and I'll go with Kyle.
Should have gone with Brittany. It's Brittany in third place.
And then Kyle.
Melissa thinks Kyle fourth. Aman, you have a guess?
Maybe Kyle, maybe Joseph, maybe
you
Terrence.
Are both wrong. Neither of you have even mentioned this person. I thought this was actually pretty interesting when I just looked at it. Nope, still wrong. It's Alyssa.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I can kind of understand that because she's
actually been like sometimes saying some small little like, hey, maybe we shouldn't, or like, what's going on here? You know,
she's one of the few people that kind of like recognized what was happening and started to speak against it. But she's also like not involved in a lot of game talk, so it's not surprising that you forgot about her. Yeah,
that's why I was like, there's someone that I'm like forgetting because Alyssa's been so low key for the past 2 days.
Yeah,
and because like and I keep hearing like, oh, Paloma and Alyssa are basically the same person, and it's like, actually no, like they were on night 1, but like ever since like the end of day 2, they've been very different. But Alyssa's been so absent that that sort of like image of her has remained the same, which is interesting. So, all right, let's take one shot at who's in last place. Melissa, what do you think?
Jasmine.
Aman?
I would love to say Paloma, but I feel like there are fans that are kind of entertained by her. So I'm like, did she drop down low enough? Daniel has a really good shot at being down there. I know a lot of people do not feel Pooch. Is it Daniel or Paloma? I'm gonna go with Daniel because I feel like there are some people that still kind of bang with Paloma.
You are both incorrect, but I'll give the point to Melissa for being a lot closer. It's
Is it
Turner.
Yeah,
It's
I was
Turner.
gonna say probably Turner.
Yes,
Other than Jasmine,
and
but
Jasmine is second to last. So here's the list. Here's the
Is it just so
list from
collateral
top.
damage from the preseason? Because I feel like Turner's also one that's been so low key on the feeds.
I think it is a
Yes.
lot of preseasons. Like there's still preseason, like just get him out, you know, like without anything happening yet on the feeds necessarily.
And he also was involved in some Taylor stuff, which I'm sure
He
did
was.
not help.
Right.
So from top to bottom here, favorite to least favorite, it goes Michael, Taylor, Brittany, Alyssa, Indy, Kyle, Amira, Nicole, Joseph, Terrence, Monty, Paloma, Daniel, Pooch, Jasmine, and Turner.
I feel like it makes sense.
Yeah.
Generally. I mean,
Yeah.
I would honestly feel like it's like a select few up here and then just like everybody else down here. So it's kind of hard to determine like what's the exact order, but you know, it seems right.
Yeah. All right. I asked the audience to rate the episodes this week, and the audience said the episodes out of 10 were a 4.6, which, I mean, to be fair, is just below average.
I would agree with that generally. I mean, there were only 2 episodes and one of them was just like competitions, really boring ones. So,
Yeah.
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 If not better.
I asked the audience to rate the feeds this week, and they gave the feeds a 4.9, which was just about average.
Yeah, well, they were really hard to watch for the most part. So, you know.
Yeah. I think
it's fun.
It's been interesting because there have been parts of it that have been above average in like some of the like, you know, things that Paloma has done, especially game wise. There's been some interesting game talk. The game has been pretty fluid. And then of course you have some low lows, and then a lot of just very average group conversation stuff happening. So I think a 4.9 is I can see that.
That is the one thing that is a positive, is because I mean, I remember I think I tweeted something at the end of Big Brother 22 when we were just like at the height of us just being over everybody from Big Brother 20. Screw the All-Stars. We went on newbies again. Screw them. And I was like, I just was begging the cast of Big Brother 23 to just be as fluid as possible. Build alliances, break those alliances, go back on your word, lie again, then build another alliance. Like, and I feel like these players are actually kind of doing that, you know, building a girls alliance and then ratting it out to the guys and vice versa. And like this saying like, this is going to be the core. And then also saying like, oh, well, you know that there's a final 2 within this core, right? So we got to get them before they get us. Like, I feel like there's a lot of that going on, and that is nice to watch.
Yes. And then to rate the season as a whole so far, the audience gave the season a 3.5 so far. I think my interpretation of this is I think that there's just a lot of pessimism. I think that so many people are involved in the nastiness that a lot of people are just kind of like, who do I even root for? Like yes, there were parts of this week that were entertaining, but like I feel like there's a lot of pessimism for the future of the season right now.
But right, you need to have somebody to root for. And if like, okay, then Taylor leaves, like, I mean, what are we supposed to do? Like, I mean, I don't know, like there are a few people left that, you know, obviously like, I guess like weren't as bad the first week. Like, I feel like there weren't as much of participants in the whole Taylor thing, like as much, but they certainly didn't like leave me, you know, very pumped on them or thinking like, yeah, I'm excited for them to move forward. Just because like, you know, there are some people there that like, you know, I feel better about than others, but nobody that I'm like really rooting for at this point. I mean, I don't know. They're like we said, like, Michael. I like Michael, and I like Brittany, and even like Michael's conversation with Kyle, I liked that. But like generally, I'm not like psyched. I don't know.
It definitely just speaks to the sort of all or nothing kind of culture that we have about opinions nowadays. It's either you are all for it, it's the best thing ever, or it's like, no. I mean, I saw a lot of that kind of commentary on Twitter today. The people that were anticipating the stock watch, they were like, I cannot wait to give everybody ones and Taylor a 10. Like, that's kind of just like the temperature that we have right now. And I think that with time, it hopefully it will get better. I mean, I think it's just another thing to remind ourselves that, and I'm probably going to catch you for saying this, that even through all of this BS that is happening, all of this utter mistreatment of this one person, not everybody in that house is a horrible person. I don't think that all of them are like irredeemable people. And I think that that's something that gets lost in all of this, because it's when the feeds came back on and you see Taylor crying by herself, like I got angry. Like I wanted to say horrible, nasty things about these people. But I was like, hold on. If you do that, then you're just doing the same damn thing. Calm down, take a minute, breathe through it, and get to work. And that's kind of like, I feel like that's kind of what we have to do right now. So
yeah. I certainly don't think the season's completely irredeemable. Like I think there is stuff to look forward to. And I think like, even if Taylor ends up leaving this week, I think like I would hope that like moving forward, I mean, gosh, my hope moving forward is that it doesn't turn into a season where it's like, okay, whoever's the house target just gets completely isolated. Everybody is mean to them, talks behind their back, blah, blah, blah. And then like, okay, now we move on to the next house target. I don't like that sort of gameplay. That's very like Big Brother 19. And I really hated that. So like my hope is that like,
God.
if
That
Taylor
Raven
goes,
GIF has been so used this week. Oh my
I
God.
know. If Taylor goes, like, I mean, I hope she doesn't. I hope she can stay and fight. But if she does go, like, the hope is that, maybe now that they've gotten out their house target, it kind of opens the playing field, maybe. I don't know if it would, but like, that would be my hope moving forward. And if it does, maybe we can see a good season come out of this. But yeah, if we find ourselves another Big Brother 19, I don't know. It's gonna be bad.
Well, just for comparison, so the episodes of 4.6, the feeds of 4.9, the season as a whole so far, 3.5. The most recent season of Big Brother Canada, perhaps one of the best Big Brother seasons in many years. The first week was the worst of the season, probably. They got a 5.5 in the episodes, a 6.5 for the feeds, a 6.6 for the season as a whole. And last Big Brother US season in the first week got a 6.6 for the episodes, an 8.4 for the feeds with the Frenchie HOH, and an 8.0 for the season as a whole so far. So pretty big difference from the last Big Brother US season. Speaking of getting out the house target and moving on, I also asked the audience to rate the backstage twist. So far, we don't really know what the outcome is going to be, but based on just how we've experienced it so far, the audience feels like it's about a 3.1 out of 10. Not huge fans. Speaking of, do we have any theories or thoughts on this backstage situation? I feel like the most prevalent theory at this point, given some of the hints that have been dropped, is that there's going to be some kind of competition, maybe some kind of like challenge-esque elimination competition between the person voted out and one of the backstagers, or perhaps a competition to get one of them on the block as a third nominee. There are different outcomes for those different things, and they would obviously dramatically change the entire structure of the game depending on what this actually is and how long it lasts.
I'm a big fan, probably because I would love for Taylor to have a way out of this. I'm a big fan of the theory that whoever the backstagers will have to compete with her, and whoever wins that competition will get back into the house. The only thing that's like keeping me from believing that that's the case is an eviction is an hour show, and I'm like, so what are they like? and they have to show, what's leading up to the eviction. They have to show the vote, and then they have to show competition. I mean, they've done double evictions in a similar fashion, so maybe there's time. I feel like that's the most likely thing to happen. Awesome, kind of like on both sides of it, because I feel like, I mean, yes, you can never really believe Julie Chen when she's like, never been done before. But I feel like the third nominee thing has been done so many times that it's like, is that like what? That's not never been done before, Julie. Like, why would you even come close to saying that? So I feel like I much rather it be a competition between them, so that, because that really makes sense with one of you could go home. Your game is at risk. You can't be on the block. So why, if they cannot be on the block, then they should not be a third nominee. They should just be at risk of going home. And the only thing that makes sense would be a competition between them and the evicted house guest.
Yeah. So if we're considering this as a genuinely potential option, and in addition to that, is it something that is going to last more than just this week? There are definitely some severe ramifications strategically if every single week the two nominees are not necessarily the people that will be evicted, and there will be some kind of competition to decide who ends up being evicted. That gives whoever decides who those backstage people are a ton of power. And it severely limits the HOH's power, like to a severe degree. And not to say that's necessarily a bad thing, but basically what it does is creates, and this is why I think it might actually be what they're trying to do, it creates almost a battle of the block-esque feel, right? Dueling HOHs, having their nominees compete to see who ends up as the loser, where basically you have the HOH nominating 2 people and you have the backstage boss nominating up to 3 people, and then one person from each group will end up fighting against one person from the other group, and the loser goes home. You've essentially now got dueling HOHs, except one of them has a different role. And the interesting thing about that is that it definitely changes the entire dynamic of how you play Big Brother, in potentially an interesting way because it's new, but also potentially a bad way, right? We know how Battle of the Block played out. My fear for something like this is that our biggest complaint about Big Brother, at least my biggest complaint about Big Brother, is that it leans too heavily into the competitions, and it's too heavily weighted in favor of people that can win competitions. And I would assume that this style of gameplay would heavily, heavily focus on eliminating the people who are not good at competitions as soon as possible, because if you are genuinely dueling against another HOH, so to speak, you want to make sure that the people you put in danger lose. And so you're going to put up the least competitive person possible in the hopes that that person gets eliminated. You're not going to put up a big competitive threat, assuming they survive the thing and now have the power to put you in danger. Right? So it definitely disadvantages people who are either not good at competition straight up or perceived as bad at competitions, if it is the case like that. I think that it is potentially the worst twist they've ever concocted if this is the case. But I do think there are some ways to make it work, but I doubt that they have those ways on hand.
So what if the person who remains, like from or the person who remains after that week or whatever, becomes the new like backstage boss?
That's one of the more interesting ways to make it work, because you're finally giving some concrete power to the person that wins. But again, it kind of only further encourages you to not put up somebody that you think could potentially win, because now if you're HOH, you put up, let's say Daniel knew that this is a possibility. He puts up somebody like Taylor, or let's say that Daniel actually had a spine. And he put up like Joseph or something. Then Joseph goes on to win the elimination challenge, and now he's the backstage boss. Obviously, he's just going to straight up put Daniel right up into the backstage, assuming he can. And now Daniel is probably going to have to fight for his life in an elimination competition. So instead of nominating Joseph, what he's going to do is he's going to nominate Terrence all day, every day, to make sure that hopefully Terrence is the one that competes, so that he loses, and the person that the previous backstage boss put up for elimination is the person that now has the chance to put up other people for elimination.
But but what if it's the same as the first week, where like if the new backstage boss puts up 3 people backstage and then one person gets saved,
audience,
and then like you've got the 2 real nominees, and then you got the 2 people who weren't saved. Like, I don't know exactly how then someone gets eliminated. I don't know exactly how this gets picked as to someone to compete, but.
Or the backstage boss, the new backstage boss can only be awarded to someone that was put backstage in the first place. Like if there's Taylor essentially would not be able to be backstage boss. She would just work her way back into the house. But if Paloma or Alyssa wins, then they would become the backstage boss because they were previously backstage. And that way it would stop the HOH from trying to strategically nominate people that they think are going to. You see what I'm saying? Like, I feel like if you keep the backstage boss power in the family, then maybe that can help alleviate a don't know. I don't know if there's even that.
I mean, even just having the person
I don't know.
Even just having your nominees, like both of your nominees and intended target, survive because they won an elimination competition, they're still in the house. That alone is incentive in my eyes to make sure that you nominate somebody that will eventually lose that elimination competition.
Clay in the chat has a good point. What if the person that gets saved by America then is the new backstage boss?
Oh, so
So like, say Brittany, if America saves Brittany then becomes the backstage boss. Brittany can put 3 people backstage. And
I mean, again,
I feel like I would like that more at this point, because like I feel like I want to be able to be like, yeah, no, you're punished.
Sure. These are different ways to create new backstage bosses, but I don't think any of them address the issue of incentivizing anybody in power to only nominate people that they think will lose the competition for elimination. Because again, if you're the person that put somebody in danger, you want them to actually go home.
I think the only thing that's going to alleviate that would just be making sure that the competitions are a little bit more diverse. I liked what they did during the first episode, where they had they had the earring competition, they had a physical competition, they had the mental competition. So if you keep the festival theme alive, then potentially you could have a mega comp that has different comps at the festival, and that way you kind of have more of a chance of winning something because they're catering to more types of people in the house. But I don't know if Big Brother would. I mean, well, if they had the audacity to have a whole Battle of the Block competition, then they can do something where you have a diversity of comps, because that's the only way for me that I feel like that would help. It would make it harder for you to predict who is going to lose because you don't know what kind of comp it's going to be.
Yeah, I think that would help. But I think that a secondary problem with this potential twist, and the reason I have so many pre-cooked thoughts about this is because this is what we see in Sequester, the game show Sequester that Audrey ran, which is that one of the issues in that format, and it was specifically designed for that format, and it still had these issues, is that, let's say the entire house wants Taylor out, and then Taylor wins this elimination competition. It doesn't magically make Taylor fit into the groups and alliances, right? Like, they still will want Taylor out, and they're just going to take the next shot at her the next chance they get most of the time. It's the same issue they have with battlebacks and other kinds of returning people who are evicted coming back. We see it all the time. We saw it kill the momentum in Big Brother 20, that the person comes back and then they just have to spend an entire week getting them back out again. And so, if you try to defy the will of the house will just continue to beat at it until they finally get their way. And that won't always be the case, but I would imagine that most of the time it would be. And that stands even if you do grant, somebody like, let's say Taylor wins the competition, becomes backstage boss, is safe for a week. Great. That gives her an opportunity to come to fight back. But it doesn't necessarily change where things will stand. People like her allies will probably get targeted if she has any, and then so on and so forth, right? Like, a majority will always find a way to game this as much as possible. And we see this in Survivor as well with Redemption Island. If anything, the fact that the majority will have difficulty gaming it entirely will only kind of bond them together even more, so that they can make sure they overcome their adversity, because it is something that they can overcome, and then stick together even more. The best remedy to a majority is making things so sort of like steady for them that they start attacking each other because they get greedy. Well,
I mean, yeah, and I hear all that. I think, and I agree. I mean, I do think that maybe there is a chance. I mean, here's the optimism, right? I just think there's a chance that, given the already fluid nature of this house, maybe there is leeway for whoever is the intended target to come back in and integrate themselves back into play, and maybe we do get a season where, because I feel like not all revolving doors are created equally. You know what I mean? Like that whole thing with Scotty, that should not have happened.
Yeah,
that should not have happened.
There are certainly exceptions, like Cliff, was certainly one of them.
Right.
But yeah, I would say for the most part, I would say like 80 to 90% of the time with these revolving doors, they just halt momentum. And again, like we've seen a game like Big Brother use this kind of thing, and this is what we saw in that show as well. That 99 out of 10 times, it's just trying to get a person out over and over and over until it finally sticks because they finally lose. And in the meantime, we're just spinning our wheels.
I don't know. I guess this is like the part where you're being a little bit of a hypocrite. I mean, if it helps Taylor out, then I love it. If it doesn't,
right.
I hear that, and I will say, and this is the caveat to this. I will say that I don't. If this is the twist, I don't like that they didn't tell them ahead of time, because I think this week would have been a lot more interesting if they knew this was the case ahead of time. If it is the case, I would say for the second thing, I think it does work as a one-time thing. I think it works very well as a thing that, like, let's say Taylor survives this. Right. So like I said, I do think there are ways for this to work. I think there are a lot of ways for it to not work. And I don't have a lot of faith that they'll choose the right ways, but I feel
like if it's like a thing like with like the takeover, like if each festival is different, there's just the backstage boss for like the premiere festival, for the BB festival, I think that's what it was. Then maybe the next festival, the comedy festival, there's a different version of the backstage boss, or it's like a different twist entirely. So maybe, there's something to be had there where you just kind of keeps the house guests on their toes because they don't know what kind of twist they're going to get. So we'll see. I don't know.
All right. Okay. So final couple of questions here. I asked the audience, I used to ask the question, who do you think the HOH should have targeted for their game? I decided let's just try something a little simpler this time around, because I feel like that question was never super informative. So instead, I just wanted to know, so we can really just judge from HOH to HOH. Do you think Daniel did what was best for his game as the HOH? Do you agree with his decisions on a game level?
No.
And 4% of the audience disagrees with Melissa. 4% of the audience said yes, he did what was best for his game. 96% of the audience said no, he did not do what was best for his game. So I think this should be fun to track through the season. Who gets the biggest yes percentage for their HOH? And we can track something like that. I asked the audience.
I feel like the real question should have been, does Daniel have a game? Because what did he do?
No.
Like, he did the will of the house and didn't even have anything to show for it afterwards. So let's start there.
I asked the audience, who do you want to be evicted this week? And I gave them all 5 options: Paloma, Terrence, Alyssa, Taylor, and Brittany. Top pick on the board with 60% of the vote, Paloma. 60% of the audience would like to see Paloma go. With 18% of the vote, Terrence was in second place. With 9% of the vote, Alyssa. 7% of the vote, Taylor. And then Brittany was actually the least wanted person to leave. 4% of the vote said Brittany. And then
Checks out.
finally, who do you want to win HOH next week? Who is your top pick to win HOH next week? This is basically two people at the top, 34 and 33%. Michael in first place, Taylor in second place. They want to see either Michael or Taylor win HOH.
Yeah,
So that's what we got.
From rags to riches. It's the best story. It's the oldest
All
story.
right.
It always works.
Well, this is the first podcast of the season, the first Roundtable podcast of the season. It tends to be the longest because there's a ton to talk about and a ton of players to rate. So it's time to start rating people an hour and a half in. Let's do it.
We'll go fast.
We'll try to make it. We'll try to make it snappy.
Yeah.
So this is the portion of the podcast where we rate the players from 1 to 10 based on how well we think they're doing in the game. This is rating their game on many different factors. It can be a personal thing for each rater, including the audience, which is part of the ratings as well. For myself, I tend to look at the this week's performance, just how much I agree with their gameplay, in the same way that you answered the question about Daniel. Do I think they made the right decision for their own game, regardless of where they stand in the game? Second is their current positioning. Short term, are they safe? Are they a target heading into next week? How likely is it that they're going to be evicted or targeted in the coming weeks? And then third is long-term prospects. Are they likely to get to the end? Do they have a chance to win? Do they have jury respect? All of the long-term things that you would think about when it comes to, will this person ultimately win the game? I try to look at all three of those things and combine them into one number, and ultimately am wildly inaccurate, as we all are. So here is what we've got. This is the board we are looking at. We're gonna go through the players alphabetically, starting with Alyssa. And again, we will rate the players from 1 to 10. I will start with Alyssa. I don't hate where Alyssa is, not gonna lie. Alyssa's doing pretty well. She's in a majority alliance. She's in the alliance, and she's pretty well entrenched within it. Everybody in the Mamba alliance seems to like her and trust her and think that they can work with her. They do see that she's connected to Paloma, and they need to look out for that. But if anybody is going to be targeted as of right now, I would assume it would be Paloma, including the fact that she is in a backstage situation. I think that we are going to probably make the assumption that Brittany is most likely to be saved by America. And then if there's some kind of choice between Alyssa and Paloma for who is going to compete against the nominees, I would assume that choice, whether it's Pooch or the house, both would probably land on Paloma. If she has to compete regardless, that would not be great. And so I do think there's a cap on her rating here, just because there is still a chance that she will end up leaving. But of course, as a backstage person, very much not her fault that she is in that position. The fact that she was out first in the competition and immediately just put in this position for that reason, very much not really her doing. I don't think there's any chance she gets nominated in a normal situation, or if Pooch has more time to think about it or talk to other people about it. I also have just in general enjoyed how she has operated for the most part here strategically. She's been active, but still kind of low key and chill and just gets along with people. I would like to see her be more active. I am worried that without the influence of Paloma, she may end up being a passive player, far too passive player. But I do think that she has potential here in the game. I think she's got a chance to make a deep run. All of that said, I think that I have to go with a 5 for Alyssa. I think that if she was not backstage, I might go a bit higher, but I do have to account for the fact that she is still a potential person to go home. I think the reason it's not lower is because I think she's probably like the third most likely person to go home at this point this week, which is a good 2 spots below the first person who's most likely to go home. So that's pretty good. So a 5 from me. Melissa, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I completely agree. I think if she was not in the backstage situation. I think if we knew what the twist was, we could better judge it. But at this point, we have no idea what that means for her. But other than that, I think she's doing a good job, playing pretty low key, which at this point is kind of what you want. And yet at the same time, in a bunch of, or in an alliance, at least like the main alliance, which is good. But yeah, I think at this point, because she's backstage, I have to give her a 5 as well.
All right, Aman.
I am also at a 5 with her. I don't think I'm not entirely sure about how savvy she is as a player. I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that she is sort of eclipsed by Paloma right now. And it's not going to be great coming down the line as she continues to be associated with her, because they're not going to split up. I really don't see them ever splitting up. So they're always going to be associated together. And I feel like, yeah, maybe Paloma's more of the likely person to go home first, but what's going to happen with you? Is she going to flounder afterwards? So yeah, I don't have enough data on her to really be confident about her ability to play without Paloma, and without the alliance. That she's sort of, I won't say that she lucked into it because she was one of the founding members, but with that being said, the alliance got started and she's like nowhere to be found. And I feel like there are stronger players within that alliance that will completely take her out the moment they have the chance.
Yeah, all right. Well, it's going to be straight 5s for Alyssa, as the audience also gave Alyssa a 5 out of 10. So we're starting smack dab in the middle here with Alyssa. Let's move on to Amira. How do we feel about Amira in the game? Another person involved in the alliance. Melissa, what are your thoughts?
I think people seem to want to work with her. I hear her name coming up whenever people are like, oh, who can we work with? Oh, I like Amira. I think she's doing good things, blah, blah, blah. And so I think that's good for her. She's already in a few different groups. However, her name's kind of been thrown around a little bit. Brittany kind of ratted her out to Pooch, and then Pooch like told her, but then eventually was like, actually, I think I'm gonna target Amira. So I don't know. I really don't know how it's gonna move on from here. She seems pretty smart, so I guess that's good. And the fact that she's already in some alliances is good as well. I don't really know. I think at this point, because of how she's played so far, I think I'm gonna give her a 6.
All right, Aman, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, Amira, she definitely is one of the better players in this cast. She's got the chops. She has a lot of information, being in the Girls Alliance and the Alliance. Thank you, Taran. Sleep at the wheel, man. And I like that she, we had a conversation with her today with Kyle and Monty, and I think who was in that room with her? Who was talking with her in the Have Not room today?
Michael and Monty.
Yeah, Michael and Monty. There we go. And Kyle was in it before, and they were sort of like running down like how they were going to like insulate themselves, and she was even like telling Michael like, look, I know that you're friends with Brittany, but like she burned me, so just be careful. She might burn you. And I feel like Michael actually kind of took that to heart. Now, granted, Michael is sort of, on the outside as it is, so he doesn't really have much of a choice. But I think that Amira is definitely one person that can sort of like see everything as it is, and knows how to like sort of like make a decision moving forward. So I would give her a 7, but like I said, there's a Taylor curve this week, so I'm giving her a 6.
All right. Well, the audience a little bit lower on Amira than the two of you. The audience gave Amira a 5 as well. It was a higher 5 than Alyssa's, but still a 5. Yeah, Amira is an interesting one because I do think she's doing pretty well here in the house. I think the biggest concern for Amira is the fact that Joseph is looking real hard in her direction in terms of targets. Pooch is looking at her as a target. Obviously, the Indy and Brittany situation is there, and so basically, the plan for the alliance is to allow the house to target Brittany and Indy first. And if Michael is to win an HOH or something along those lines, maybe he can go after Turner and Pooch for them. But for the Oasis alliance and for for Turner and Pooch and Joseph, they are looking at Amira. They're looking at Brittany and Taylor, or Brittany and Indy first, but they are looking at Amira soon. And in my experience, if you're like, oh, we'll take out these two non-threats first, and then we'll go after the bigger threat, that usually turns into, okay, we won HOH week 2. Time to take out. Wait a minute. Are we really going to waste an HOH on Brittany or Indy, or should we take our shot while we have it? Right. So I think there's definitely a chance they take that shot sooner rather than later. But she does have insulation in the form of the alliance. So, so it is an interesting spot. I do think she's still probably pretty good. I think it's not super likely that she's in a lot of danger next week, depending on the twist situation. If we are in a spot where we're doing the challenge, then it would be very easy for her to end up in a spot where she can't be protected by her alliance. So I do think that the fact that her name is being thrown out there, not great. I am also going to be at a 6 for Amira. But overall, that's going to be a 6 from the lot of us. All right. So let's move on to Brittany. Aman, how do you feel about Brittany?
Oh man, what a flame out waiting to happen. It's already happening. Yeah, she went ahead and ratted out Amira to Pooch. Why? You have nothing with him. Why would you think that there was a... And then the way that she even like went about doing it was just so messy. It's just like, oh, I can let you know about what's going on if you want to work together. Like, and I feel for Brittany, I do, because she feels like she's on the out. She feels like she's not in the core of the 6 Girls Alliance. She doesn't really have anything else with anybody else except for Turner, who is with the guys. So maybe she thought because Turner and Pooch are together, then maybe she could trust Pooch. But at the very least, she should have at least went to Turner first, maybe use what you do have before you. It was I don't know. I know that she feels like she's isolated. She wants to make the moves, but it was just not the move to make, because it went and it got right on back to Amira, and Amira pretty much knows that it's her, saying I don't know, I only told you to. So, and she's like, oh, I think that's a lie. I think they just made it up. Oh, girl, come on. Yeah. But she still has a risk of going home, so I'm gonna have to give her a 4, because it's not looking good.
Mm-hmm.
A 4 from Aman. Well, the audience is with you, Aman. The audience also gave Brittany a 4. For me, man, not only did she rat Amira out for very little reason, and I appreciate the fact that she's trying to account for every conceivable angle in this twist, and I get that, and she's in an unfair position where she's having to do that. However, it's not that unfair. I think it's less unfair than the Alyssa and Paloma situation, because the fact of the matter is, Daniel probably would have nominated her if she wasn't already in a backstage situation, because he talked about her being an easy nom, but he couldn't nominate her. And she was the only person who was chosen by Pooch who wasn't actually last in the competition. And she's talked about this many times. He chose her because didn't seem like she'd fit in as much. Well, let's be real. And he continues to not choose her to prioritize her in the backstage position, because he just doesn't vibe with her in the same way that he vibes with Alyssa and Paloma. And she's trying to change that. She's trying to get in with him, but her methods are not great. And I'm if it was just the one time, I'd be like, maybe she just made a bad call. But the problem is, she also did a similar thing earlier in the week with Daniel when she threw Indy under the bus and the rest of the women under the bus. I think that she thinks that the most effective gameplay, the game talk, is just throwing people under the bus. No, it's like Monty does a great job of exposing information in a way that bonds him to other people. He tells his alliance about the the Oasis Alliance. He says, look, some of the guys have pitched this thing. I'm working with them, but obviously I'm with you. That got his alliance to trust him more because he's developed a personal relationship with him. They've already with them. He's already working with them, and he's giving them information that is valuable and general and makes it seem like he's giving them something that, you know, they can work with. When Brittany goes to Pooch and they have very little game connection outside of this, drops this info that is specifically throwing somebody under the bus, somebody that she is working with. He has no that's not how you connect with somebody. You don't just approach them, drop a name, and then bounce and then be like, great job. They're going to trust me now. Like, it just doesn't work that way. And she didn't seem to understand that. And then on top of that, the way that she has been going around trying to deny it, where she is preemptively being like, well, I'm just afraid that people like maybe even Pooch might be saying some things, maybe even about me, that are lies. And it's just like, you are way too specific in your preempting of this lie. It is completely giving you away.
It's not
and
really good.
These trends are very concerning to me. She is already being named as a primary target for next week. She is still backstage and could theoretically still go home, even though I do think she is the most likely person to be saved by America. But even if she is, she's still a big target for next week. And her performance this week has been very poor in my eyes because of these big mistakes. I think that she has shown promise in other areas of the game. But if this is what happens when she gains a little bit of capital and then she immediately spends it and like destroys her game with it, like that's going to be bad news. So for me, I'm going real low. I'm going a 2 on Brittany. Melissa, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with everything you guys were saying. I think a lot of it stems from the fact that she just like can't not say it. Like, if she has information, she wants to reveal it. She wants to say it. And I get that. I mean, like, I never stop talking. So like, I could absolutely see myself going into the house and just being like, oh my God, here's what I heard, blah, blah, blah. Here's all this information, and just like spouting it out as if it's nothing. And she's done that many times. And I think something that really concerns me is like, the fact that she didn't recognize that like Pooch was like not interested in talking to her, like not interested in having this conversation, not wanting to work with her. Like, she was getting nothing from him. He wasn't even trying. And yet she still was like, I'm still going to reveal this information to you. I feel like it's one thing if he's like, okay, I've been wanting to work with you. Like, let's like compare notes here or something like that. But like, to just give information like that, especially about somebody in your own alliance, like, it's just, it's not good. I mean, I'm worried that she's just going to like not know who's with her, who's against her, and just kind of like share everything with everyone. And you don't want to be in an alliance with someone who shares everything with everyone. So I'm very worried for her going forward, as much as I really, really like her. And I really do hope that she does well. Like, I just am so nervous. The one thing I would say is, with this backstage twist, if America does save her, maybe that would kind of open up some people's minds. Like, oh, America likes her. Maybe I want to be liked by America. Maybe I want to work with Brittany. Like, maybe it gives her more of a shot, because at this point, she's kind of like the outcast of the group and they see her as an easy next out. So I do hope that goes well for her. But at this point, I have to give her 3.
Yeah, something else I forgot to mention is that what she got caught doing, throwing an ally under the bus for conceivably no reason, is very difficult to recover from. Because how does anybody, because Amira fully thought she was in with Brittany, and Brittany didn't tell Michael she was going to do this, or that she did do this. So now that Michael has found out and Brittany still hasn't told him about it, he doesn't trust Brittany enough to tell her that he knows that she did this, because what if she says something about him? He has no idea. This is their first impression of her playing the game, and it's going to be very difficult for anybody to confide information in her if they think that she could just blurt it out at any given moment. So it's going to be a very difficult road to walk back.
Michael said that much. Like, he was like, look, on a personal level, I love her, but if I think about what's going to keep me in this house, obviously Mamba is the way to go. Like, I can't rely on Brittany, so it's not looking good, sis. I don't know what. I mean, I do know what you were thinking, but dang, like, oof.
Yeah.
Not good.
All right, let's move on to Daniel, and we'll start with the audience this time. The audience gave the lowest rating so far, a 3 to Daniel this week. And I have to say, I do think that a 3 is pretty appropriate for Daniel. I think that his performance as HOH has not been great so far. He did not take advantage of the position. It's a very good position to be in, and he was asleep at the wheel. I made an analogy this morning that, like, as the HOH, the first HOH, usually the house is like unmolded clay, and you can just kind of mold it however you want because you have the power to do so. And he spent the week trying to get the clay to mold him. And it's just like no, you're doing it wrong. In addition to that, he has shown countless examples of just, concerning things involving his potential gameplay moving forward. He is not included in any of the majority alliance. His biggest alliance is Oasis, which is a fake alliance to begin with. His next best alliance is with 2 potential targets going into next week. Now, he does still have a little bit of the goodwill of the first HOH in the fact that he did not nominate a lot of people, and they feel grateful for that, and they feel like they have a little bit of a relationship with him because of that. I wouldn't really expect Daniel to be a target soon moving forward, but he is not currently in a position to succeed in the game. And on the fact that he had such an advantage coming in as the first HOH and squandered it, I am agreeing with the audience, and I'm going to give him a 3. Melissa, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I'm very disappointed in Daniel, honestly. Like, I was really excited for him when he did all his interviews and he was talking about how he is such a fan. And when he came in and was crying in the diary room and was like, oh my God, I can't believe I'm here. I was like, yes, oh my God. I was really excited about him. And then he got Tame Impala as his music. I was like, okay, this guy, I like it. And then he was like, I don't want to put up Taylor. I like her. Like, basically indicating, like, I'm going to do my own thing. I don't care what other people are doing. And it was like, yes, okay, he's gonna, and he said he wanted to target the alpha males, and it was just, everything was like all good. It was all set up to be great. It sounded like he understood that, like, oh, okay, well, everyone's going against Taylor and wants me to put her up. Like, that I'm not going to do their dirty work. Like, someone else can put her up later. I'm going to put someone else up. And I really thought that's the way this week was going. It was not the case. And unfortunately, the second, this has been said before, but the second the Alpha Bros showed him like a little crumb of attention, he was like, okay, I'm in it now. And it's just really sad. So, yeah, I don't think he played this week well at all. He didn't even really solidify like anything actually real with anybody. Like, he could have been using this week to gather information. Like, you guys have mentioned this, when you bring people up in the room, don't say, I think I'm gonna put this person up. Thoughts? It's like, no, like, ask them, like, who do you think I should put up? Get information. You're the HOH. And with this whole thing about, like, well, I don't want, why are they coming and talking game to me? Like, I don't know what's going on here. Like, that's the point of it. And you should be like calling people up one by one to get information from them, to get people to commit to you. I mean, the first HOH is crucial. That's when the big alliance forms. And usually they want the HOH to be part of it. Oh, guess what? Turns out they don't want him to be part of any of these alliances. Well, yeah, that's what we thought. So I think he did very poorly this week. I really don't know. I don't know what's going to happen to him moving forward. I'm so sad because I was really excited about him. So, hopefully he turns it around and kind of like sees like, oh yeah, I played the week wrong, whatever. I don't think he will, but I hope so. So yeah, I'm going to give him a 3 as well.
Here's my hot take. At this point in the week, when we were rating players last season, I think Frenchie was doing a better job as the first HOH.
Oh, God. Oh, God.
Aman, what are your thoughts on Daniel?
Yeah, I think I agree with everything that you guys said. I think I'm probably going to go ahead and give him a 2. I don't even have confidence that he can even really talk game. I don't, because he was getting pissed in the beginning of the week when no one would come up and talk to him. It was like he heard that as HOH you're supposed to, get a good grip on the house, but he expected for that to happen simply by winning HOH. And then on top of that, I feel like whenever he is having conversations, especially with his allies, like when Nicole is coming to you and saying, you know what, I think there actually might have been a possibility that you got kind of caught up in some mess that didn't need to involve you. Because like that whole Monty thing, isn't that a little strange? And he didn't even have the time of day for that argument. He didn't even want to listen to it. It was just, nope, Taylor's bad. She called Jasmine fat. Get her out of here. Like, okay, so you can't even entertain the idea that you were snowed in this situation. That to me is just bye. It's a 2.
It's a 2. All right. Let's move on and talk about Indy. Indy, not in a great spot. She's in the Girls Alliance, but not really. And the Girls Alliance is kind of imploding. She's also a pretty big house consensus target for next week. Just as an easy target. Doesn't mean that she will be targeted, but just in general, there's a large lack of respect for Indy's game, even if people do like her. And she is struggling with the game talk. There's just not a lot that's going on. Anytime she tries to talk game with people, they don't connect. And it's not just the language barrier. It's also kind of like just the way that she sees the game and plays the game. For instance, when she was playing in the veto competition and people were trying to ask her, like, what would you do with the veto? She was just like, I don't know, I'm going to do whatever I feel like doing with the veto. And a lot of people just kind of feel like she's playing like it's Big Brother Brazil. Whether that's true or not, I can't say. But that is the perception of her in the house. And that's not a great place to be. I think she has potential. I think that people are underestimating her in the house. And if they do leave her alone, thinking there are bigger fish to fry, I feel like she could make like a late game run. I think she does have that potential. But for now, it's definitely not looking super great. And she is like, Brittany is a potential target moving forward. Indy is looking like the primary target moving forward as of right now. Again, with the twists, we can't be sure, but it's definitely not looking great. I would also give Indy a 3. Melissa, what do you think?
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think she's in a precarious spot. I think partially her own doing, but also partially just like the people just, I don't know, for whatever reason, they see her as an easy target. So I am concerned for her moving forward. I also think, like people see her as an easy out, like, oh, well, we'll just get Indy out, not a big deal. And that's really not a good spot. So I give her a 3 as well.
Yeah, Indy, I mean, maybe I'll give her a 4 only because there is a little bit more potential with her. But then again, she is such an easy nom next week. So then it's kind of hard to want to do that when she could be out. But would they really waste the vote on? I feel like she's more of a placeholder, a pawn nominee versus an actual target.
Right.
So I will give her the 4 only because there is a bit more space for her to grow. I roll my eyes at the fact that she was just a recruit and she knows nothing about the game and she's continuously talking about Big Brother Brazil. I feel like it's like just be here. Like be here with us, please.
Like you're already
here. Play this game. Like no disrespect to
Yeah.
the Brazilians at all, but it's like I need for you to be here with us.
Right.
So yeah, and the fact that she's like not willing to really talk with anybody, it's just like that's not you're not really playing a game at that point. You're kind of you're just there, to be hot. And that can be funny at times, but it's gonna get old real fast, especially when people need to rely on you for things. So
yeah.
All right. Well, the audience gave Indy a 3. 3 from the audience. Let's talk about Jasmine. How do we feel about Jasmine? Melissa, let's start with you.
I don't feel great about Jasmine. But I do think that there are certain people in the house who do want to work with her. And I don't think people are necessarily like wanting to target her right away. I haven't really heard much chatter about that, so I guess that's good. I don't know if she's really doing much of anything though. Although at this point in the game, it's early anyway. I think okay, so I think I'm a little torn here, and I was thinking I would give her maybe a 5, but I do think Alyssa seems to like know the game a little better than Jasmine. I don't really feel like Jasmine knows what she's doing, or at least hasn't vocalized it. So, yeah, at this point, I think I'm going to give Jasmine a 4.
All right, Aman.
Yeah, I think that there are some chops there. I do think that she is somewhat of a fan, because we do know that she used to watch the show with her dad. So I think that there is something there, and we do see a little bit of maneuvering here and there, where she was letting Indy know about the conversation that she had with Pooch. So I know that there's something there, and she's kind of like more in the core of the Girls Alliance. She's not in the premier mega alliance in Mamba, which is a detriment. And I don't even think she's aware of it. Am I wrong about that, Taran? Have Paloma or Alyssa spilled that to them?
About the alliance?
Yes.
No, that is a secret. Nobody has spilled about that alliance.
Okay, so yeah, that's
other than the fact that Pooch was in on the creation of it.
Yes. So that's a little concerning. It's really hard to rate her, because and it's like, I'm not even trying to exaggerate and harp on this, but I feel like her whole week was about Taylor, and
yeah.
Okay, so I think that she definitely is. She's a little higher up because her positioning is higher up. I will agree with you, Melissa, and give her the 4.
All right. The audience actually a little bit lower on Jasmine than the two of you. The audience gave Jasmine a 3 out of 10. I feel like I do have to agree with the two of you, though. I think that I'm not super sold on her gameplay yet. I don't think she's active enough, and she has been left out of a lot of alliances. But her position to her closeness to Alyssa and Paloma is a very valuable thing for her. She does have a lot of connections, like personal connections with a lot of the house, and she's in a pretty decent spot. She seems unlikely to be targeted anytime soon. That said, long-term prospects, I think, are pretty low so far, just because she's not involved in those alliances, and I haven't seen her be active enough to see that she knows how to get herself out of that position when she needs to. So for now, it's going to be a 4 from me as well. Let's talk about Kyle. What do we feel about Kyle? Aman, what are your thoughts?
Kyle has kind of been a bit of a surprise to me. I mean, I'll, of course, like the nonchalant talked about his grandmother probably wasn't one of his shining moments. But with that being said, as far as his game is concerned, he's in the alliance.
Taran, you're missing your cue.
The problem is that Aman is lagging, and so I don't know if it's a lag or if it's a prompt.
Just beep it anyway. Just beep if you think
just
maybe.
Anytime he lags.
Yeah,
anytime I lag, just give me one of those little beeps.
Just give a nice little beep.
But I do think that I think that he has something really great going with Monty. And I do like that he seems to be one of the people in one of the only, well, I won't say one of the only, the ones that we've seen the most from, in terms of like trying to actively build connections on a personal level. They don't always, manifest into full-blown alliances or final twos, but I think like ingratiating yourself with as many people as possible on a real level is great. He's always, talking about his background and how he wants to be, he wants to learn, he wants to surround himself with experiences and people that he never thought that he would meet. And I think that that's attractive to a lot of people, because then you just talk about yourself with him. So I will give him a 6, But then again, no, it's that Taylor curve again because I hate what he did. So I'm gonna give him a 5. I'm sorry.
A
I couldn't do
5
it.
from Aman and a 5 from the audience as well. The audience gave Kyle a 5. And I guess it's not too much of a spoiler at this point to tell you that Kyle received the second highest rating of the entire week at a 5.
Oh,
Yeah, look, it was
From
going
the audience.
but yeah, but I knew that was going to like it's slim pickings out here, y'all. We thirsty out here because the kindness that we are just seeking from these people is like it was a really nice score.
Yes. All right. Well, from my perspective, I am actually liking what I'm seeing from Kyle game wise. I do think that he is in a pretty good position. He is in a spot where he is working with the Alliance. He's got Oasis, and he's also got a good working relationship with Joseph. Regardless of the Oasis situation, with that have not bond. He's also talked a decent amount of game with Daniel and Nicole, and they feel pretty good with him. Most of the women also all feel good with Kyle, which is good for him. So he's basically in a great spot. He's in kind of that Alyssa spot with the benefit of not being in danger of going home this week and being more active in the game, at least recently, than Alyssa has been. He's been making specific bonds with people, like with Monty, like with Michael. And he's been actively trying to make sure that he's studying for competitions, that he's asking for advice. He's doing a really good job of bonding with people. He is one of the big guys, but nobody has talked about his name as a threat. Nobody has talked about his name as a target. So position-wise, he's in a really great spot. He's been, active in just the right amount of ways so far. So for me, I'm feeling pretty good about Kyle so far. He's in a pretty good spot, and I'm going to give him a 7 here.
Wow.
Melissa, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I've been pleasantly surprised with Kyle. I really thought he was just I liked his preseason interviews. But then during his intro and all that sort of stuff, it was like, oh, I'm gonna like twerk and I'm gonna be this TikTok guy. And I was just like, oh boy, not this. But I really liked what I've seen from him in the house recently. Obviously, like Aman said, the Taylor curve. But I do think that he's in a good spot with the alliance, the big alliance, as well as creating some bonds with Monty, and then specifically with Michael. I think Michael's really got a good grasp of the game, and I think the two of them together, I think could really do something nice. So I'm really hoping that they become like a real duo. I know that Kyle kind of proposed like in a roundabout way a final two by basically saying like, I wouldn't hate being in the final two chairs with you. But like it wasn't official or anything, but I got the sense they both wanted to work together and they both were like interested in that idea. So I do hope that they move forward together. And yeah, I think that like the talk they had together gave me a lot of confidence in Kyle's game. So yeah, I'm going to give Kyle a 6.
A 6 for Kyle. All right, let's move on to Joseph. Let's talk about Joseph. I can tell you that the audience gave Joseph a 4. 4 out of 10. For me, this is kind of a tricky one. Obviously, Joseph was a target this week. He was somebody that the women in particular were trying to get on the block. It failed. He is not the best game talker, but he has been getting a little bit better. The problem is that all of his eggs are in the Oasis basket, and he is literally the only person in the house who has all of their eggs in the Oasis basket. As Monty and Kyle have already ratted it out, and Turner and Pooch are more concretely, Turner, Pooch, and Daniel are more concretely together in the what is now the Inception Alliance, which will also likely change soon. So he's kind of, in some ways, on an island there. But he is a personable guy. People do like him in the house. And the talk of targeting him specifically has died down in favor of targeting Turner and Pooch. So that's good for him. And so that gives him time, in my eyes, to rebound and ultimately like get back in with Monty and Kyle in the way that they might want to keep him around as numbers for them. So that could be good for him overall. It's a nice kind of safe position. He's pretty inoffensive overall. I would give him a 5. Melissa, what are your thoughts?
Yeah. I feel like I know that he's not like going on the block, and they kind of turned away from targeting him. But I do think that moving forward, if a big guy or whatever, an alpha male or whatever is targeted, it's gonna be him. I do think he has like the least amount of relationships with people in the house. And I do think he's pretty expendable. I don't really see him having a great head for the game or anything like that. Maybe he does, but he hasn't really shown it yet. So for me, I'm not super impressed with what I'm seeing. And I think like, there could be some openings for him with people, but he kind of then just closes it off by just going back to the bros or whatever. And I just don't really see his path forward all that much. I mean, it's possible he just becomes part of the bro thing and they just go to the end, but I don't know. I think he gets targeted first out of all the bros because he doesn't have those outside relationships. So for me, God, I think for me, because he has come up in people's mouths, he normally would be a 5, but I think because his name has been brought up multiple times, I'm going to give him a 4.
All right, Aman.
I will give Joseph a 5. I think he's very middle of the road. I do think that people like him, but I do worry that people will begin to lose patience for him because he's not really the best talker. Like, I feel like a lot of the time, like, he can kind of like talk your ear off. And even when people like come to him for comfort, like when Brittany was like, beginning to break down and just wanted to sort of just be comforted because she didn't feel like she was making any inroads. He literally, I know that he was trying to give her a pep talk, but he basically was just like, stop crying. That's not going to do anything for you. You need to suck it up. You're here to play. I'm like, this is not a football field, bro. Like, use a little bit of emotional intelligence and realize that she just wants to be. And it was the same thing when Taylor came to him. It was just, I'm just not I think that eventually when numbers do begin to shrink, I don't know if he's going to have enough goodwill left at that point because people are going to, stop being charmed by what he looks like. And then they're going to be left by what they hear. And I think that he could go, but still a lot of time left. So middle of the road 5.
There we go. Michael is up next. Let's talk about Michael because Michael was nominated for eviction this week. Then he won the veto. He got himself included into the majority alliance, the alliance, and he's in a pretty good spot now. He's now that he's gotten himself sort of like kickstarted into the game. He was having trouble talking game early, and that's one of the reasons why he ended up on the block. But winning that veto was huge. People see value in him now, and he is definitely heavily fortified in the alliance. And he also has some extra numbers in Brittany, who just kind of screwed herself over, which has definitely put a little bit of a damper on Michael's game. But he's also been making some connections with Terrence today, which could be very good for him. A lot of people still see him as an outsider, and he's able to bond with those people because of that. If we do see somebody like Taylor stay in the game this week, I think that Michael could be the person that is able to pick her up if she sticks around the following week. And if Brittany sticks around, obviously Michael has her. And that's all good. On top of that, the fact that he won a competition this early, he also came in second place in the hanging competition by just a hair. I think that he is definitely somebody that could compete very well in competitions. I think that's a benefit for him. And he's also a big fan of the game. He knows how to operate for the most part. I think that there's a lot of promise here with Michael as well. And I am also going to give him a 7. Melissa, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I feel really good about Michael's position and Michael's place in the game. I think that he, like you said, he's very well insulated. I think he's got, the big alliance as well as a bunch of smaller alliances. And it does seem like a lot of people are coming to him like individually and being like, I want to work with you, or like, I've thought about working with you, et cetera, et cetera. So I think that's a really good spot to be in this first week. And I know, he got nominated or whatever, but I think like maybe, hopefully, fingers crossed, that's over. And maybe he's like, now, because he's like in these groups, maybe that won't be happening. Maybe he won't be seen as like the next target. I haven't heard him talked about as being like the next target for really anybody. So I think that's really good. And he proved himself by winning the veto to people who maybe like doubted why they should have him in an alliance. Like he can hold his own. So I've been really impressed with him, and every conversation I've seen that he's been a part of, every strategy conversation has been good. So I want to give him a 7 as well.
All right, Aman.
I'll give Michael a 6. I think Chantel hit the nail on the head this morning during the round, or the update, when she said that Michael's game is sort of, it's been stunted by the fact that he knew that he wasn't really playing with a strategically sound cast. He wanted to talk games so much, but he didn't have like the social ability to insert himself into a lot of the conversations. And he even mentioned today that he feels like he's been having to play catch up because he was on the block and therefore no one wanted to talk to him because they were like, what's the point of talking to someone who might go home? I don't know if he'll ever have to stop. I don't know if he'll ever stop needing to play catch up. And even within the alliance, I feel like you still kind of are on the outs of that. Now there's things up, but I can only go off of what I've seen for the past 6 days, and I'm not confident that he won't always be one step behind, even though he's in the premier mega alliance right now. So 6 because he won the veto and he was able to save himself, but I'm still not that confident about his chances moving forward.
All right. Well, the audience agrees with you, Aman. The audience gave Michael a 6 as well. Let's move on then to Monty. Let's talk about Monty. Melissa, what are your thoughts on Monty?
I think a lot of people want to work with him. And a lot of people are like in an alliance, or he's in alliances with people. I am a little worried about him. I think that he didn't handle the Taylor situation correctly, and I'm worried he's putting his eggs in the wrong basket with certain people. Like he's trusting certain people that maybe don't have his best interests or would immediately turn on him if they needed to. So I think like the idea of you get this information, you hold it close to your chest and kind of see, like, thank the person for the information and kind of see what else is out there. And it sounds like he just immediately went and talked about it. So I don't feel all that confident about the way he is playing the game. I think like the fact that people want to work with him, that's great. And I think that helps him, but I am just a little worried in terms of like, I don't know. I think I'll give him a 6 for now. Even though I don't know if I see his ability to play the game. It does seem like a lot of people do really like him and want to work with him. So for that, I'll give him a 6.
All right, Aman.
I want to give him a 7, but like I said, the Taylor curve is really what's inhibiting me from doing that. It's hard. It's really, really hard. I just don't like how that played out, and I hate the conversations that he had surrounding race, trying to imply that Taylor was going to try to guilt Daniel out of nominating 2 Black people, and then sort of like giving the okay, which is going to give license to non-Black people to then invalidate the feelings of, it's just so messy. It's so messy. And I know that doesn't necessarily have to do with like his acumen as a Big Brother player, but just like on a personal level, it's just hard for me to reconcile those two things. On top of that, I think that he recognizes the mistake that he made in going to Paloma because he realizes that Paloma is clearly not to be trusted with sensitive information. And he is doing things in his power to sort of like try to circumvent that and make sure that doesn't happen. I liked the meeting that he had with Kyle, and then the meeting that he had with Amira and Michael, and sort of like setting everything up and saying like, look, I want all of you to go out and have your little alliances. Just know that this is the real one. I will continue to be honest with you guys as long as you continue to be honest with me. I like the conversation specifically with Michael, and that maybe he was like going to try to like tell Pooch and Turner that, they didn't necessarily, they could throw it to Michael, because then Michael could potentially throw up Brittany and Indy or whoever, but really they're going to throw up Pooch and Turner. So I like that there's like a little bit of strategic stuff going on there. I would like to give him the 7. I could potentially even go up to giving him an 8, but I cannot do that. I'm going to give him a 6.
All right. Well, that's 2 6s so far. The audience, though, lower on Monty. The audience gave Monty a 5 out of 10. And I am also going to go in a different direction. I'm going to go higher for Monty. In fact, I would go for the 8. I think that Monty is probably my highest rating of the week. The only reason he did not hit the 8 for me is the recent events surrounding Taylor, and not for the reasons Aman is talking about, though those are very valid, but for the fact that Taylor might stay in the game after this week, and that would be bad for Monty. The fact that he got swept up in this, for lack of a better word, drama, is not good for Monty. Because, again, she could either stay and now he's got this situation to deal with, or even if she doesn't stay, because he's gotten caught up with it, he is now being talked about by Nicole and Daniel. Is like, wait a minute, we feel like maybe Taylor is telling more truth than Monty is, and he's being looked at more than he needed to. He did not need to be involved in this situation at all. Taylor didn't need to go for him to do well. In fact, Taylor could have been an asset for him, and I think that it was a mistake to let her go in the first place, let alone be a driving force to get her gone. So I feel like that's a pretty decent-sized error, and it's left a bit of a hole in his armor. Despite that fact, I do think that he is doing a very good job in the house. He is a very impressive player socially. He is very good at making people feel comfortable. Talking to him, so many people feel like he is really tight with them, from Amira to Kyle to Joseph to Pooch. A lot of people feel like he's one of their closest allies. He's in probably one of the best positions in the game, being in the Alliance and the Oasis Alliance and so on and so forth. Doing a very good job. Definitely has a lot of skills to do well, and is in a very good position. So it's going to be a 7 for me. It could have been higher, but I do think he made some mistakes this week. We will see where things go from here. All right.
So like, I don't know, we're trying to move fast. It was just like so egregious. It was just like, why?
Yeah.
Why you didn't even need to tell Paloma. You didn't even need to do that. Like, it was just so. And I know that there might be some credence to the fact that, like, yes, I mean, he doesn't want to be seen as getting into something with Taylor, because then it's going to be a huge target, because then it's going to be like a whole cookout situation again. But like I said, I got to remind everybody that people are going to assume that the Black people are working together anyway, regardless of the. I feel like he overcorrected. It was just so unnecessary. So unnecessary.
Yeah. All right, let's talk about Nicole. Aman, what are your thoughts on Nicole?
Nicole. What are my thoughts on Nicole? I mean, I feel like she is one that sort of like can fray a lot of the time. Like, I do appreciate that. I mean, she, did the bare minimum and started talking to Taylor about what was going on and tried to get to the bottom of the issue. And then she could see, like, maybe this wasn't exactly what we thought it was. But she's a little bit more proactive in trying to insulate herself in the house, more so than her ride or die Daniel, but still not very proactive enough. I feel like there really isn't much that she's gained this week. If Daniel is supposed to be the HOH and is supposed to be setting up the structure, then you're supposed to be his right-hand man, sis. And you didn't really do much either. So yes, no one's technically coming for her, but she's not really in any of the alliances either. So how long is that going to last for you? So I gotta give her a 5. She's really middle of the road for me as well.
All right. Well, the audience gave Nicole a 5 as well. Also a 5 from the audience. Yeah, the thing with Nicole is that she is doing an okay job socially. She doesn't really have any haters or anything. People do like her, but her association with Daniel is not great, and thus her association with Turner and Pooch is not great. She's kind of bonded with Terrence, but she really just let Daniel run rampant and put up 2 of her allies in Terrence and Taylor. Like 2 people that absolutely could have been chill with her. If Michael hadn't won that veto, Terrence is probably going home this week, and that's bad for Nicole. The fact that Michael won the veto and Taylor is going home this week is also bad for Nicole, and that should not be the case. As the closest ally to the HOH, I mean, she got real lucky, really good spot to be the closest ally to the HOH, especially in the first week. She really mishandled that situation in my mind. So I'm going to actually go down to a 4 for Nicole. Melissa, what are your thoughts?
Agreed. Everything you just said. I'm going to give her a 4 as well. I think she would be a 5, but I am really disappointed in the fact that she, had the ear of the HOH and didn't do anything with it and didn't even really try to influence it. And even when, she recently thought like, hey, maybe this Taylor thing was like all just a misunderstanding. And then she even went to Daniel and said that. And then Daniel's like, you better not be telling me that I made the wrong choice. Right. And it's like, maybe say that. Maybe say like, look, like maybe we should reevaluate. Let's talk to Taylor. Let's see, let's see what maybe she'll offer us something. Maybe we can like, make this work. Either way, like, you don't have the power, but maybe like if she stays or if Terrence stays, we're good either way rather than, something else. So I don't know. I do think she could have done a lot more this week. And instead, she didn't really do much of anything. So she gets a 4.
All right. Let's move on to Paloma. Let's talk about Paloma. The audience gave Paloma a 3. A 3 out of 10. It's an interesting rating because Paloma really is, again, like one of these players. She was driving the strategy. If I was giving these players a rating like a couple days ago, I would definitely be higher than a 3. But where she is now is an interesting spot. She's very well insulated. I do think that, the fact that her alliance is accepting the current situation where she's like really going off on these rants is a good thing because it means that, they're not going to like completely throw her under the bus. But I do feel like she's just one bad rant away from becoming a house target or one bad HOH away from becoming a house target. And that's not great. That said, I do think she performed pretty well in those first couple of days, and she could end up riding on that momentum for a little while. So it's kind of like some high highs, some low lows, and overall, I'm gonna land on a 4. That's me. Melissa, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I tend to agree, honestly. I think, yeah, and if you ask for my rating in the first couple days, I would be like, oh yeah, she's the best in the house, shockingly, because like everybody trusts her. She's in a bunch of alliances. Everyone wants to work with her. She's doing great. But these past couple days have really not been all that great for her. And I think, at first I was like, okay, I'm a little thrown off by this. I'm not sure, even just generally, a lot of people were like, I love her. I love her energy. I love everything about her. And I was kind of like, I feel like she's exhausting. Like for me, like I don't know if I would click with her, but maybe it's just because we're seeing like a bird's eye view and we're not seeing like the actual interaction. We're not having that interaction with her. And maybe she's just like really gives off this great vibe in the house. But I do feel like a lot of people recently have kind of been turning to each other like she's kind of all over the place, right? She's kind of losing it. Like, what's going on here? And if it keeps this direction, I do think people might see her as a liability to their alliance and be like, we got to get her out. Let's just, take a week, get her out, and then we can all move forward. So I am concerned for her position. I really don't know how it's going to work out moving forward. And I also think the fact that she's part of the backstage twist is not.
Yeah, I
great
actually
for
forgot
her.
about that. I feel she's the second most likely person to leave in my eyes.
Right.
So.
Yeah.
Right. That's why like there is a lot of high highs, but like you said, like there are a bunch of things that like take it down a notch each time. So I'm going to give her a 4 as well.
Yeah, I actually think I have to drop to a 3 because I did forget about the backstage situation. I think there's a very good chance she leaves on Thursday. Depending on what never mind. I'm going to stick with the 4 because I don't know enough about the twist to know that she's that likely to leave. So I'm going to leave it at 4. Never mind. Moving on. Aman, what are your thoughts?
If Paloma were packaged any differently, she would not be getting this much grace. She is exhausting. And they are already talking about it. They're already talking about it. And it's like Amira was already saying, Paloma and Alyssa are going to have to get split up soon. I think even Jasmine was saying Paloma and Alyssa, you got to watch out for them eventually. So I'm trying to be fair, given how I feel about her. But I don't even think I need to employ a lot of impartiality here. I think that she is just exhausting. And you cannot play at this rate. You can't even talk at that rate for much longer without just flaming out. It's a 2 for me.
A 2 from Aman. All right, let's move on to Pooch. Let's talk about Pooch. I still honestly can't get over the fact that he did actually align with Turner and they've got a final 2. Like I literally on my Twitch stream during the premiere was like, oh my God, wouldn't it be amazing if Turner and Pooch aligned and we could call them Turner and Pooch all season long. And it happened. I mean, let's just appreciate the little things, Let's just appreciate what we've got. Turner and Pooch is the thing.
Turner and Pooch. I can't help feeling I would be a lot, more interested in this if I knew what Turner and Hooch was.
I actually said this on stream that it actually, when I think of Turner and Hooch, I actually think of Scrubs first.
Really?
and then the show, the movie or whatever, because Scrubs was a much bigger part of my life than Turner and Hooch ever was. So I just always think about Hooch from Scrubs. Anyway,
it's so funny though that it's literally like Turner and Hooch and it's Tom Hanks and a dog and it's like Turner and Pooch, so it's just
right?
like even more like I can't. Yeah, it's wild.
Anyway, about Pooch, it's interesting. I think Pooch has potential in the game, but I think that like he has that style, and I noticed it even in the pregame interviews. I mentioned specifically that when he was asked a question that was a difficult question, I don't remember what the question was, he gave a non-answer to it. He just kind of like spewed out a bunch of words that sounded like he was answering the question, but he didn't actually answer the question. And I've noticed that in successful players, in particular, Cody, California. So he has that skill, and I think it's a good skill to have in the game. The problem is, I don't think he has the charm of Cody California, which is causing problems. He's just comes off a little too game body, a little too sketchy, and he's not quite able to pull it off. But he does have some skills. He does have some potential in the game. I don't want to neglect that fact. But he is in some trouble. Some people are looking at him. He tried to start this Bros Alliance. It's not really clicking, and he's getting outplayed. He's getting outperformed by some other players. He is definitely a potential target moving into the following week. Not a high target at this time, but definitely somebody that needs to be on the lookout. So, man, I think that I have to go with a 4 for Pooch. I think that he's not looking super good. I think he has potential to be higher than a 4, but right now he's just not performing very well. So it's going to be a 4 from me. Melissa, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think there are some things that are working in his favor and some things that aren't. And I think if a lot of the times when people are saying that they're going to put him on the block or whatever, it's him and Turner. And I could see a situation where they go for Turner, they kick Turner out and he sticks around. Like maybe that's what happens. But I do feel like he does have some solid like relationships with people, but the fact that I didn't love the way that he handled the Britney conversation. I mean, even if you don't want to work with her, like she's trying to give you information, she's trying to talk to you, and you're just kind of being extremely dismissive. And, when she gives you the information, instead of being like, oh, maybe I need to reevaluate things, he's like, yeah, obviously that's not true. And I'm going to go immediately tell the person that she was telling me about. It's like, I get that, like, maybe you don't trust her as much because you think you have a good relationship with someone else, but like maybe like sit on that information for like 5 seconds before doing something like that with it. So, I don't know about his style. And I think also the fact that, people are talking about targeting him and putting him on the block, even if it's just like putting him on the block as a pawn or whatever, like that's not great for him. So I was going to give him a 5, but I do think I'm going to have to give him I think I'm gonna have to give him a. I keep
All
like
right, so
going
Melissa
back.
has given him a. Can we
I
get
keep
that in
going
the
back because I
spreadsheet?
do think that like. All right, I'm gonna give him 4.
All right.
Maybe I'll turn it around.
Aman, what are your thoughts on Pooch?
Yeah, I mean, he was already ousted from one of the alliances that he created. Michael and Monty and Amir were talking earlier today, and Michael was like, "Yeah," or Monty said, "We just have to make sure that we maneuver around him in a way that's suitable because he's just the type of person to just talk at you instead of to you." And so he's already rubbing people in his fake and real alliances the wrong way. So, and the fact that he has a very strong likelihood of going up next week just doesn't make me feel good. And I agree with you, Taran. I don't think that he really has like the charm that he thinks that he does. And I feel like the longer that he's in that house, the more grating he's going to become. I just feel it. So yeah, I want to say that he's kind of like middle of the road, but the Taylor curve is kicking. It always does. So it's a 4 for me as well.
And a 4 from the audience as well. So it's going to be straight 4s down the line for Pooch. Let's talk about Taylor. Melissa, we'll start with you. What are your thoughts on Taylor?
This is a hard one because that's like, I want to be like 10, but I know that she's not playing at a 10. And I think like it's very hard because she hasn't done anything wrong. Like she hasn't played poorly. She hasn't done anything, that would give her a bad score. But she's probably going to go home this week. And so even though she hasn't really done anything wrong, the fact that she's probably going to go home is not great. However, I will say that once she did get nominated and once people did start actually talking to her, she's done a great job. I think the work she's done going around to each individual person and trying to like clear up any misunderstandings or anything like that, or even like apologize to them, even though she doesn't need to do that. Like the fact that she's gone around and had these individual conversations has been great. And I think she's been very smart about it because like, obviously I'm like, you need to talk game with them right now and say that you'll work with them and blah, blah, blah. But I think the way that she's handling it is much better because it's like, okay, no, I don't want to talk game with you. Like, I just want to apologize. And I think it comes across a lot more genuine. It comes across a lot more like, I actually like want to make things right versus like, just please keep me around. Even though obviously with the caveat being that like, she doesn't need to do any of this and she did nothing wrong, et cetera, et cetera. But, like, I do like the way she's been handling it with the thought that within like tomorrow, maybe and Thursday or whatever, she's going to actually like flip it to game talk and be like, okay, please keep me because of XYZ. Like, I hope that's the way this goes. I don't know yet. But I really think like she could stay, especially with this backstage twist. So I think like, I don't want to counter out just yet. So, yeah, I think with the backstage twist that bumps it up a little. So I do think I'm going to give her a 3. And this is so terrible because this has nothing to do with her. She's great. I think that under any normal circumstance, she would be killing it. But I think with the cards that she's been dealt, I have to give her a 3, and I hate it.
All right, Aman.
Yeah, I feel like with any other cast, this probably would not have happened to her. And I know that we say that for a lot of players, and it's so easy to make that point. Well, if it were just different, it'd be different. You know, like it's the easiest thing to say. But I think what's so interesting and why it rings so true now is because this is happening right after Big Brother 23. The cookout was so instrumental in combating this type of behavior because it created a community within a community where that community didn't usually exist. It's the reason why someone like Brent last year couldn't go around saying Ozza is aggressive and for that to be the running narrative for Ozza, because there were enough people in that house to get to know Ozza to know that that's not who Ozza is. I have a friend just like Ozza back at home. That's not who she is. So they couldn't run with that story, and Oz is like the second person out of the house, and Brent is the third person out of the house. The cookout was the reason that something like that could happen. That doesn't appear to be something that's here this year. And not to say that I need for the Black people to do it again. That's not my point. My point is that community, that grace isn't here this year. And that's through no fault of her own. I don't have any other choice other than to give Taylor a 10. I'm not doing it. I'm not like, and I know that there's like all sorts of reasons that she's going to go home. She's probably going to still be the first person out of this game, but it's not going to sit right in my spirit to not do this any other way. I'm giving her the 10 because what she is going through right now, baby, I'm not having her step out of this house and see that I didn't give her a 10. I'm not doing it. I'm so sorry. I'm not doing it. I'm just not doing it. So it's a 10. It's a 10 because I don't even know if I could even have the mental fortitude to deal with what she's going through. And it's not to infantilize her, because that's another thing that I want to make sure that we don't do. I'm not trying to say it's like, oh, helpless me, because she's proven that that's really not what this is about. And a lot of people are trying to say, oh, I just want her out of this house because it's just not good for her. She needs to just leave, and they just need to like cancel the show. As long as Taylor is showing me that she wants to stay in that house and stick and fight, I'm going to continue to support her. I saw her even before we got on today. She was like in the bed alone again, and she kept telling herself, literally verbalizing it out loud, get up. Get up. Like, I'm about to get, whoo, okay. I'm not going to go there. I'm giving her the 10. That's what I'm doing. That's it.
All right. Well,
great. Now this clip's going to get circulated around. It's going to be like, Melissa gave her a 3. Wow. She had no faith. She didn't, oh God. I want to give her a 10. We'll just say that.
No, I mean, it makes sense. It makes sense. Like, I know in my heart of hearts, it's not a 10. I know that. Like, I know that. I understand it. I get it. Melissa is going the more practical route. I'm not. So, like, we don't need anybody to come in and say, like, oh, look, they're not, they're trying to, like, it is what it is, guys. Like, she's not in a good position. She's not in a good position. She's most likely the first one out. But my spirit will not allow me to give her anything other than a 10. And that's just what it is.
Also, like, to the people saying, oh, the stock watch doesn't matter anymore. The stock watch hasn't opened yet. Like, just don't buy Taylor then. If you like, don't want, it's not like anyone loses anything yet. If you're like, you know what I mean? Like, it's not like, oh, a bunch of people bought something and now Taylor stocks go up. Like, the markets hasn't opened yet. It's first week.
Also, like, there's always an element of a wild card in this. It's literally
Aman has always been the wild card.
This is not the audience rates and the audience chooses what the number is. The reason we have individuals here is to introduce an element of a little bit of randomness and make it a little more fun that way. It's just like Big Brother, Sometimes you got some twists thrown in your way. All right. The audience.
If she's out of the house next week, then you won't have to worry too much about it. Like,
There you go. The audience gave Taylor a 4. 4. So there you go. Yeah, for me, it's definitely an interesting spot. I do think that Taylor is in a position where she is a great example of a player that started at a disadvantage due to very little fault of her own. And I don't think that she played it perfectly by any means. I think that there was more that she could have tried to do, sure, game-wise. But I think that it was significantly more difficult for her to make those attempts. And because, again, it's like you don't want to be Brittany and have no connection to somebody and just start dropping game on them. You need to be able to build a bond with somebody. And she was building some bonds. The problem is that those people just turned their backs on her when everyone else started saying she's a bad person. And when she didn't have a bond with somebody, obviously she didn't drop game with them. When she felt like she was developing a bond with Monty, she started talking some game with him. And lo and behold, she gets slammed for it, right? He turns around and rats her out. And not only rats her out, but makes it seem even worse than what she was actually saying. So I do agree. In terms of what she has done this week, I don't find a lot of fault in her game. But her position is certainly dire. She is almost definitely being voted out this week. And if she is not voted out this week, then it is likely due to a twist. And even if there is a twist that saves her, she is still probably in a lot of trouble heading into the following week. However, the fact that she even has any hope is a lot better than a lot of people in this spot who, a lot of week 1 nominees, when it's looking like it's probably a done deal, but it wasn't entirely their fault, I'd probably give them a 2, maybe a 3. And in Taylor's position, she's in that spot, and she still actually has a chance to stay. So for me, it's also going to be a 3 here for Taylor. And we will see what happens with this backstage situation, and we'll see if anything comes of it. So there you go. With the 10 from Aman, if I can do some quick math, they beat me to it. It's going to be a 5 overall for Taylor. So look, it didn't even impact that much. You're fine. It probably, if Aman had given her a 4, it would have been a difference of 4, or it would have been a 4 versus a 5. It's very little actual difference. Chill, everyone. So let's move on to Terrence. How do you feel about Terrence, Aman?
Terrence is, I feel like we all hit the nail on the head during the drafts. I feel like we all had similar thoughts about him. We were like, not to pat ourselves in the back, because I feel like his archetype is one of the easiest to judge. It's either he's going to be a GOAT or he is one of the first out. And he's on the block. Week 1, he didn't win the veto. He's still on the block. The only reason that he's not going to be the first person voted out is because the house hates Taylor for no goddamn reason. So, yeah, I feel like he doesn't really have a lot of chops and inroads with a lot of these people. We barely see him on the feeds. We got to see a little bit from him before we started the stock watch. And maybe there's some time for him to grow into it once he's not on the block anymore. But I don't know. I feel like he'll always be an easy nom, or he's just going to be a GOAT to drag. And that's just not fun. So I will give him a 4, only because I don't think he's quite middle of the road. I feel like it's one or the other. So I'm going to give him a 4. I think it's on the lower end.
All right. Well, the audience gave Terrence the lowest score of the entire week. They gave him a 3. And I will say I don't love Terrence's position here. He is nominated on the block week 1. We have quoted this. I've quoted this stat before many times, that the surviving nominee from week 1 has never gone on to win the game in the US now. But still, in roughly 30 seasons of this format, it's happened once. This is certainly much better odds than before, but I think there's a reason for it. People who are in this position are more likely to have trouble winning to begin with, and then being in this position makes it worse. And I haven't really seen Terrence do enough to get himself out of this position. As the quote unquote older house guest, he is, also statistically probably less likely to win competitions to get himself into a position to have some impact on the game. Again, there are exceptions to this rule, but as of right now, I'm just not quite seeing it from Terrence, and I think that he is definitely struggling. Now, the one saving grace so far is that I did see him start to open up again, and he talked some game with Michael today, which could be useful for him. He's also not really a major target moving forward in the short term. So his long-term prospects are not looking great in my eyes. His short-term or his performance this week was also not great, being nominated. But I do think he did a couple of decent things. His short-term situation is okay. And still have no idea what's happening with this backstage twist. In the same way that it might save Taylor, it might actually sink Terrence. I have no idea. So
Yeah,
I'm also going to give Terrence the 3.
Same for me. I'm giving him a 3 as well for all the reasons you guys said.
Boom. All right. Finally, let's talk about Turner. The audience gave Turner a 3. And it was a 3.49. It's one of those. But they gave him a 3 overall. And I feel like that's a bit low for Turner. I do think that he is a target. Obviously, with Pooch, a lot of people have talked about potentially targeting Turner and Pooch. But Pooch is the sort of more visible target of that pair. Turner is pretty low key. He's not really on the feeds all that often, to be honest. I also think that Turner this is potentially baseless, but there are certainly a lot of big fit dudes in the house. Yes. I have a suspicion that Turner might end up being a comp beast.
Yes, yes.
You see it too?
Yes.
First of all, he did very well in that weird, like, hook things to your face competition, right? Which is pretty random, sure, but whatever. But also, he's very good at the oh God, what do they call it? The bumper pool or whatever it is. I mean, he was like the only one that knew the rules, so he probably had a lot more experience. But like, he has very good hand-eye coordination. I think that he can do pretty well. He has the smaller build while still being athletic enough that I think he is going to outperform the bigger guys in anything that their size hinders them in the competition. So I think, look, total speculation on my part, but I think he might be doing well in these competitions. So watch out for that. And also, like, socially, he's honestly fine. Pooch is the one that's really getting him in trouble. If anything, he just needs to branch out a little more and just open up to more people. He's a little bit isolated in his social circle. I guess this sounded more positive because I was going up from the 3, but I'm going to give him the 4 as well. I think that the social isolation, he's not branching out enough, not being active enough outside of his boy crew, and being a target associated with Pooch is bringing him down to a 4. But the other reasons are why he's up from a 3. So it's a 4 from me. Melissa, what are your thoughts?
4 for me as well. For the reasons you stated, he's seen as a duo with Pooch, and I do think that there is a lot of chatter about nominating the two of them next to each other. I don't know how that would end up, but the fact that, they're already seen as a very strong duo in the house, like, that's not really good for his game. I do agree he should branch out, so that's 4.
All right, and Aman.
I'm a little higher. I think he's more middle of the road for me. But I agree with you, Taran. I'm having premonitions. Like when he was doing that thing on the premiere, I was like, ooh. And then, like, I mean, he makes carpets for a living. We actually got to see him actually making one during his intro package, and I'm like, that's like very intricate. And he was doing it very fast. So I feel like he's got that X factor for these competitions. So in the event that he winds up on the block, maybe he can just pull himself right on down. I don't know. Maybe that raises his threat level. Maybe they think, oh, maybe Pooch isn't the right person that we should be going after. Maybe we should be going after Matt. But until he gives them that reason to go after him, I think that the only thing that is really sinking him right now is Pooch. And if he does give us a little bit more on the feeds and starts talking to more people, which I think he can do, because I think that people generally like him. Like, I don't think anybody has a bad thing to say about him. We do, but his sister does, but I don't think anybody else does. So I think I'll give him a 5 because it's either or.
All right, there you go. That is the stock watch for week 1. What an eventful one. Yeah. But here we are, as Turner will round out here at I believe a 4 overall. And it's looking like Michael has the highest average rating, followed by Amira, Kyle, and Monty. And then we're looking at a bunch of 5s, a few 4s, and then down at the bottom, we've got Brittany, Indy, Paloma, and Terrence.
And Daniel.
Yes. So there we are for the stock watch this week. We're about 3 hours in.
Oh boy.
We made good time.
I feel like that's kind of standard for the first one. We could have shrunk it down a little bit, but I just feel like there was a lot to talk about. So
yeah, hopefully you all enjoyed our time here discussing the ins and outs of the first week of Big Brother 24. I will, of course, be back tomorrow morning at 11 a.m. Eastern to update you on everything that is happening today on the Big Brother 24 live feeds. And tomorrow night, we'll have the Wednesday night episode. We'll see all of this Taylor stuff will finally hit the episode. So that will be interesting, to say the least. I will be live on Twitch watching twitch.tv/Taran Armstrong along with all of you. And then, of course, after the episode, we'll be live to recap what goes down. So make sure you are there to check it out. Anything else that we need to talk about? Any final thoughts on the week?
No, I'm interested to see what the backstage twist is, because I do think that will affect things. I mean, maybe it will be nothing and it will just be like, okay, whatever. But yeah, I'm interested to see what happens on Thursday.
All right.
Yeah. Just I want to know, because I'm tired of them talking about it on the feeds. It's getting annoying.
Yes. All right. Well, thank you all so much for joining us here today. You can, of course, find Melissa at It's Melissa. I didn't know how long that was. With 3 A's.
Ooh,
3 of them. That's how
go.
long 3 A's are.
That was like on pitch, Taran. Good for you.
Taran will just sing it every week.
And Aman, what have you got going on?
You can find me everywhere at Aman Adwin. Still kicking with Liana and Beth for All Stars, All Winners on the Dragons podcast. So, yep.
All right. Of course, again, you can find me over on Twitch, twitch.tv/Taran Armstrong. Also, check out the YouTube channel I've got going on, Taran Armstrong on YouTube, dropping some Among Us videos. We had our first proximity chat video drop, and I had a good imposter run before, and they got some revenge on me in this one, so you can check that out. We've also got a very fun one coming up tomorrow, a classic Liana moment where she may or may not have chased me around the map. So make sure you check out the video dropping tomorrow.
I've been catching those videos and like to make this about me. I've been like, damn, I'm reminded of like not playing with you guys so much in the beginning.
Yeah.
I'm like never around in any of these videos. It's quite sad.
Yeah, it took a while for you to like really become a regular for some reason. Yeah. Mm-hmm. But they're a lot of fun, so check them out. And again, you can find me on Twitter at Armstrong Taran. Thank you all so much for joining us here today. And we will see all of you. Oh, right. Of course. How could I forget? I need to plug the Stockwatch website. If you want to play along this season, go to realitystockwatch.com and you'll be able to see what's going on with the stocks. You can log in with a social media platform or an email or whatever. If you've got an account, you've already done this before. And you can buy and sell shares of these players based on the numbers that they just got. So here they are again. Here they will be, the number is their price now. And when we rate them next week, these numbers will enter a formula and their price will change based on whether the rating went up or down. And you will either make money or lose money based on who you decided to invest in. And the website keeps track of it all for you. So make sure you check it out over there and have some fun if you want to play along. You get a chunk of cash to start so you can invest as much as your heart desires. The market, Mel says, should be open soon. Thank you, by the way, to Mel for
real money.
It's
Don't
not
take
real
it too
money. Yes.
seriously.
It's not real money. It's a for fun game. Make sure you keep that in mind. But thank you to Mel for helping out with the spreadsheet and the website inputs here. And that's what we've got for you this week. So thank you all so much. Again, check out realitystockwatch.com and we will see all of you next time. Oh, no, I actually forgot one more thing.
Yeah.
This is what happens when you. This is
such a fake out. I keep being like, bye. Oh.
Hold on. Ready for this? They're gonna go away for a second. Ready? This is just you and me. Okay.
Oh,
This is what happens when you. This is what happens when you stick to the end of the podcast and you don't quit the video early. You don't quit the podcast early. You get the special breaking news. The special breaking news.
Breaking news
are happening now. You ready for this? Tomorrow at 12:30 p.m. Eastern, we will be live with an interview with Azza. Azza will be talking with us about the season. It will be live for the patrons of Rob Has a Podcast. So make sure you tune in. It will be available to everyone else after the fact. So if you are interested in hearing us chat with Azza about what is going down, make sure you either become a patron, watch live with us tomorrow, or check out the podcast after the fact when it drops for everyone. But that's what we've got for you. I hope you enjoyed the secret announcement. Those of you that stuck around, those of you that are not quitters, and that's what we have for you this week. Thank you so much for joining us, and we will definitely this time see you next time.